Welcome back to another episode of Murder of the Gray State. Tonight we are going to be doing an analysis, discussion of the stage crime scene. So things that just don't really make sense. For this to be a, double homicide / suicide investigation here, right? So tonight we have Catherine, Sophia, and Greg with us. Thank you guys for joining in, of course.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. So, where to start? Let's see. Let's go with the most obvious one. Let's look at body placements and movements. I know that Sophia and Catherine have been probably doing the most information gathering on that and research on that. So, what do you guys think about all that?
Well, from the lack of blood that's at the crime scene, they were moved after they were killed.
Absolutely.
Probably, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry, it's just, if you look at that corner of the couch where Camille supposedly was killed and been laying there for 3 weeks, according to the narrative, and you zoom in, there is no blood there. There's not even decon fluid there. And she's missing the majority of her head and her hands and stuff. I mean, where is it?
Absolutely.
You should see something. And that corner is extremely clean for a body that had been laying there that long.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, there should have been some seepage of something. Even if there was a blanket laid down, there should have been some seepage of something.
Right.
Yeah, and also we have to take into consideration what was written in the reports. You have some of the officers saying that Rania was found lying on her left side between her mom's legs, and then you have other officers writing she's lying on top of the legs between the mother and the father. And so right there, I mean, between whenever these officers are coming in, somebody's moving, at least Rania.
Right, absolutely. But it's interesting because they're saying that they're, basically, I mean, what Sophia was saying was there's no decomp fluid yet. These guys, or really anything over in those specific areas, and yet these guys aren't even, they're not taking notice of that. I mean, I'm not the only one finding that strange, right?
Oh, no, not at all. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Greg, what are your thoughts on it?
I just left a comment on your stream. Maybe you or somebody can read it. But first, if anybody doubts that any of the bodies were moved at any time, all you have to do is look at the blood on the recliner. That proves somebody's body was moved at some point. Because there's blood there in that certain spot, item 34, and that should not be there if where the bodies were found is where they were all killed.
Right.
So that puts it to rest. And I had a recent comment on one of my other channels, and I just put it in your chat if you want to read it. I'm sure Catherine will have. I'm sure Sophia too will have some thoughts on it, and you may too.
Yeah, I'll read it right now. It says. They stated the lividity shows the bodies were not moved. There
is no lividity.
Right.
Yeah,
So
there was no lividity.
And that tells you that there wasn't blood in the body. So a lot of their blood was missing. And because lividity, what that is the pooling of blood at the lowest point, wherever the lowest portion of the body is toward the ground. That's where the blood would pool. And they had no lividity. None of them.
Which is weird.
Just
because...
look at the autopsy reports.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Which is really, really odd because where is the blood then? It just comes right back onto that one, of course. Interesting.
So the other thing that you have is that the fact that they're telling us that none of Camille's blood, what Detective Jim Dunlop told us, that none of Camille's blood and none of her daughter's blood were actually mixed. Now, DNA results and everything, there may be some questions, but that was one of the 21 questions that we had for him that he told us. So it was like, well, how could their blood not mix, right? How is there no blood of Rania found on her mom when she was laying on top of her? How does that happen?
100%.
Kind of also shows that they couldn't have been killed there. One of them could not have been killed there. Rania couldn't have been shot there, is what it would tell me at the very least.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She was laid there. That's somebody placing the bodies on top of their mom. Now, why would they do that is a whole nother issue.
Mm-hmm.
How does Rania's arm go missing? How does a dog, if a dog is credited with the daughter's missing arm, the fractured rib, all of that, while the dog is doing that, how does the dog do it so neatly that none of Rania's blood gets on Kamel?
Right. Let's see. There's one thing I want to bring up real quick. I'm looking for it right now. I'm trying to remember how I worded it, but it was something along the lines of like, how much strength does it take? Which, yeah, this comes down to don't be surprised by my search history here, feds and FBI and all this. But how much strength does it take to rip an arm clean off of a corpse?
A child's arm, a 5-year-old's arm, and
right.
How does a dog do that and fracture the third rib?
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Is see that it comes with. I mean, I know when I looked it up initially, and that's why I'm really like trying to go and find it as quickly as I can. But it takes a lot of force to go and clean rip somebody's arm off. But on top of that, it shows that there was pressure on the rib, obviously, and that's why it broke. So we're looking at things like weight. We're looking at how much pressure did they put in in reverse. That way they could just kind of hold themselves down, really sink in and anchor themselves. That way they can go and yank the arm out. And so we'd be looking at, of course, we know we'd have to look at decomp. And, I know Catherine and I and Sophia, we've all talked about, the decomp. And when it comes down to it, that arm would have been incredibly hard to still rip off, child or not. It would still have taken quite a bit of force. And a dog of paleo size is not ripping that off.
How much blood would have been involved with Rania, with the ripping of that arm off? And if it's done right there, where the body is found, probably would have went all over those bullets, would have went all over everything else that they would have tested, right?
Possibly. But the thing is, it's not an artery. So, but if she's already, that's the thing.
Yes, there is. There's the brachial artery right there that runs underneath the armpit that goes up underneath the clavicle. And so, even though she would say it happened after death, because we don't know, they don't write it in the reports if it was before death or after death. But even after death, there would have still been some blood within those arteries and within those veins, and some blood would have been like on her clothes and on Kamel or on the floor.
Right.
It may not have been a lot. It wouldn't have been spurting if she were already passed away, but it would be there.
Right. Well, they do say after death.
So they say after death, and it would still have pooled to some degree.
Right.
Would that look like? I know both of you have talked about cast-off blood and things like that. What type of blood would that look like?
That's more like passive, and it would just have pooled.
It would be kind of where the body was found.
Yeah, right. It depends on the movements of what the animal, like say, if it was paleo, is he yanking, is he tugging, is it, getting thrashed about? Then you would see like the passive drops kind of being flung here and there, not too far from the body.
Right.
But there would be evidence of something have happened within that.
Would it be a big pool? A big pool?
Probably not a huge pool of blood because she was so little. And after death, again, since the blood stops pumping, whatever was within those arteries in that area is what would have come out.
Right.
But you still would have seen something because it took quite a good portion of the skin and the pectoral area of her chest. And yeah, it would be evident. I would really believe that it would be evident somewhere.
Would it line up with item 34 with the blood on the recliner?
I don't know, unless her arm came off and then she was leaning up against the recliner, and I mean, I don't see how that would match.
Well, even then, we'd also have to go and look at how the arm was ripped off, and we didn't get to go and see, the wound itself, like just up close, so we can't really see how it was, ripped. But on top of that, I mean, if that was up on top of that, I mean, the rib and all this, it seems kind of pointless to be pushing there. It's like an anchor point, and that's what it looks like to me. It's just somebody had put their foot on him, or right under Rania, and they were kind of just using that just to hold the body down, so that way they could yank the arm out.
Yeah, and that's what I've always thought too, because I cannot see how Paleo would have been able to apply the force needed to fracture a rib, especially on a child. Especially, with the ribs, because children's bones aren't quite as hard yet. They don't really harden up until later because they're still growing. Everything has to still grow, so they have to be a little pliable. And so they would give a little bit better than on an adult. So the amount of force needed to be pushing down to fracture that rib. Now, it wasn't broken completely, it was fractured, but it still takes a lot of force. Right. And I can't see Paleo being able to do that.
No.
How would that even occur? Would it be a foot, or, I mean, how do you even break that rib? I mean, isn't it pretty high up?
It's right up underneath the armpit. Say, if you right there, right by where the armpit is, but push in on your side. So yeah, it's like, so I don't know. This is just how I try to imagine it. Like if it was a person, they would have to somehow sever some of, and I know this is so disgusting, people, so please, if you're not a mature audience, don't listen to this. But they would have to sever and cut into the flesh and then put their foot down close into that armpit and then pull. It's the only thing I can think that would make sense to get that arm off. That would fracture the rib at the same time.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, this is a child.
Yes.
Why the F would anybody do that to a child?
That's a good question.
Yeah, these are some sick individuals, but I think it comes down to the whole premise of they're trying to stage the scene. Like I said, it all comes down to this, it seems staged, and, I have my opinions. I know we all have our own opinions on the crime and what exactly occurred. Obviously we're not going to, state anything, like we're not naming suspects, but we've got some people of interest, and to me, this looks like somebody either that A, has watched too much TV, and like CSI, things like this, or B, these are people that did this. They've got some acting experience. They've got some stage death experience, something along those lines. So could this be somebody from the Gray Stage group? I think it's possible. I'm not excluding it, of course.
Because the Gray Stage group, not the Gray Stage group.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, did I say the Gray Stage?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
You'd be shocked how often that happens.
Oh, my goodness. My apologies. No, the Gray State Goons. It has to be one of those. It would have to be. I'm not saying it would have to be for sure one of them, but it makes sense. But I also can't, I'm not naming them as a suspect. It's just a speculation here. But we're looking at, there's a lot of actors there. So there would be some opportunity there. We know that, motive, that aligns perfectly. Opportunity, we know that David and his family were comfortable with many of these guys. So it comes down to, okay, well, they're in their casual clothes. Whether this was done in the morning or late in the evening or what. They were in comfortable clothes, so regardless, these are people that they would have been comfortable with. So we're looking at somebody that they were comfortable with, no matter what. That is part of it. But then we're also looking at the lack of blood, so then we'd have to be looking at all sorts of things, where they dispose of whatever got touched with blood. We know David couldn't do it, he was already dead. You know, we know that Camille couldn't do it, nor could Rania. I mean, that would be the really big twist right there, is if Rania was actually the one who did it. But you know, we all know she didn't. It's not a thing either. So I think that's really, really curious. So
yeah, I hear that, you know, but I don't know. It's the whole everything after and the police response, and I know their responses are very odd. I find them very, very odd.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
I mean, whether they know it or not, they're part of a cover-up is kind of the way that I see it. Whether they were involved at all or not, whether they know that there's more to it and they don't want to publicly talk about that, that's not a good thing.
yeah,
You know, there's nothing right about that, especially considering the content, considering the violence, considering there's a child involved, considering there's a soldier involved.
mm-hmm.
Considering just so many different things. That's why it's like their actions are very, very odd and are not good. They're very shameful actions.
Oh, absolutely.
But I don't think they're bright enough to pull something like this off.
And you know, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sophia.
Thank you. I keep referring back to the other case, the Pennock case, but when you read those reports and you look at those photos, it's very telling compared to this case. And, you know, the police were just like, yeah, you know, we'll send you everything we have in it. We'll even send you the recordings. But when it comes to this case, they hold on to as much as possible. And I've gone to other states when I'm researching a case, and they send me the whole case file.
Right.
I'm like, okay, thanks. You know, I mean, it's a box. A big box of all the files and military records and everything. And I'm just like, wow, okay, thanks. That was more than I ever expected. I still have that box sitting in my closet. I haven't even dug halfway through it. But it's just, when it comes to this case, you're just like, wow, you know, what's the big secret?
Exactly. I think they realize they messed up. I think that's part of it. They realized that they unwittingly partook in this cover-up. That's my honest opinion. I think that's why they're so quick to just, we don't want to send any more, basically. I think that's part of it, but it's also the whole thing, you know, why, like, they're so critical on what is sent and what is being redacted and all this. There's a lot that really didn't need to be redacted. You know, like
and,
those.
You know, I would like to expand a little bit on the dislocating the arm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for little kids, like for toddlers and, you know, up to 1-year-old and maybe 2-year-olds, you know how parents often will take a child and swing them between them, right? And do stuff like that. And you should never do that. Ever, ever, ever. And that's because at that age, it is really actually super easy to dislocate a child's shoulder or elbow because things are still, you know, kind of loose and not getting in there. But as they get older, it's harder and harder to get that done. And Rania was 5.5. So it wouldn't have been as easy as an infant, not as hard as an adult, but not as easy as a toddler. And so it still would take a good amount of force to get that off.
Mm-hmm.
Or at
That's
least
pretty interesting that you bring that up, because I think there is a photo of David actually doing that to his daughter, right? Spinning her around.
And most parents...
Kamel, I think it was actually Kamel.
Was it Kamel? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, most parents do, because you don't stop to think about it until next thing you know, you've dislocated your child's... it happens a lot, you know, and it's not abuse or anything like that. It's just mainly parents don't know, and they don't really stop to think, is this going to hurt my child? They think they're just having fun, swinging because the kid's having a really good time, and next thing you know, they're in the ER, we're having to put their shoulder back in.
Right.
Yeah, that's...
I actually would like to back this up. When we were moving to Alaska, when Brooke was not even a year old, she was crying in the back seat. We were in Canada at this time. like around Whitehorse or something. It really doesn't even matter now. But I was in the passenger seat, and I turned around and to hold her hand, and we went over a bump. And it pulled her elbow and her wrist out of place.
Ooh.
And you could feel it go back when when we finished the bump thing. And she was crying and stuff. But we had to be very, very careful with her. It's like for the next year or so, her bones just were so easily dislocated and stuff. You couldn't like pull her up from a laying position without being super careful because they would just pop.
Yeah, and that's why you got to be super, super careful with little kids, because that's just what happens. Because the joints are still so pliable and nothing is really quite set. And again, that's so they can grow and their body can get bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh, that's a very good point.
And all I was doing was just trying to reach for her hand, to hold it, just to comfort her. And that just happened, and I was horrified by it after that.
Yeah.
So.
And it's funny because, I've always been a very rough and tumbly kind of person. Tomboy doesn't even begin to explain it. And even now, like with my grandkids, with my granddaughter, our fun thing to do would be I'd let her punch me. As hard as she could punch me. I didn't care how, she could just, wind up and whack me. And so that would be our game until one time when I think she was like maybe 6 or 7, and she did that, and I felt her knuckles give way, and I'm like, uh-oh, because it's like they moved, right? They weren't, they didn't dislocate, but I could feel them give under her punch.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told her, I said, okay, no more of that. Because I said, we don't need to take you to the hospital because your hand is now all broken because Grandma let you punch her. But yeah, I mean, it's just, they're so easily pliable and things move real easy. But again, not to the point to where it would have been just super easy for a dog to just rip that arm right off.
Right. Well, especially not one of that size.
Right.
That's good points. That's very good points. I mean, the thing is, you can look at that. Just looking up a simple Google search of just, how much force do you actually does it take to actually rip an arm out of socket? You can look at what it is. And, generally when it comes to kids and stuff, I know that stuff is usually not brought up, which
right.
makes sense. But, you just kind of got to go and reduce the numbers a bit. That's the thing. We got to go and look at that. It's going to be a bit less, but it's not going to be like, it's going to be super easy. We're going to be able to just, let's yank this right on out. No, this is still...
Right, but it is going to take a little bit more force because we're not talking just pulling it out of socket, but you're talking about ripping it from the human body, which adds even more force than...
Mm-hmm.
So it does, I don't know, I still think something more than just that dog. It would have taken more than just the dog, my opinion.
Well, the dog's not going to be able to also fracture that rib like that. Especially not one of that size. Him just, doing it that way, it's not going to do that. Plus, on top of that, we have to be looking at the same thing. Like you brought up was, that's why I don't think it was done there. In fact, if I'm being blunt, I don't think the bodies were. I don't think they were actually killed there, because that goes into another topic of, well, where is the blood? If there's no blood there, then how do we know they weren't just, maybe this was done elsewhere? So if there was any, blood spurting out or pooling up or anything like this, it was done somewhere else.
Right, because where your cursor is right now on the couch, if you just go right below that on that rug, is exactly where Kamel's head was. Mm-hmm. And in that area, like we've been saying all along, 2 gunshot wounds to the head and 2 missing hand. Well, the other hand wouldn't have been that area, but a missing hand and stuff. And there's nothing right there. There's a little tiny bit, and that's probably due to the minute decomp that was going on, that little discoloration of where your cursor is at this point in time. But right where it was, if you go up just a little bit, just so, if people are watching, to the left.
Over here.
Now you're too far. Goes right there. Oh, right. Okay, okay. Stop and go up. Now go right. A little bit more right. A little bit more.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right there in that
right,
area.
like the north, little bit north of that, and then to the right. That little tiny brown spot. Yes, right there. See that little discoloration right there?
Yeah.
That's it. And so to have 2 gunshot wounds to a head and then a missing hand in that area, and then a supposed almost 3 weeks of decomp, and that's all that's there? No.
Right. Yeah, it's a little peculiar because it doesn't make any sense. And plus, I mean, the one thing, I mean, since we've already got this up right here, this is the part I do want to bring up again. You can definitely see there's multiple different colors hair here. And if we were to go look at the hair color of what was in the garbage, one of these colors, I believe it was this one. It could have been this one, though, was the hair color in there. So this is where I think this all kind of ties in. Plus, on top of that, we'd also have Ranya's hair. Some of her hair would have been in the area, but we're looking mostly at Kamel's hair. And this is mostly Kamel's hair. We're looking at she had just dyed her hair or was in the process of it when this occurred.
Yeah, and some of that actually almost looks like black fibrous stuffing. Not all of it looks like hair, but it's hard to see with some of these photos.
Right, plus on top of that, how does the cotton get all jumbled in this and bad? I mean, they would have had to have been somewhere.
Because isn't that where that is right now? Wouldn't that have been where she was laying, like lying on top of that?
Yep, right in that area. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
That's why I think. I mean, my theory. I mean, I do have a theory about it. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to talk about an air at this point, but. And we've probably all talked about it, but it's when it comes down to it, it's end of the day, where's the blood? So if we can't pinpoint where the blood is here at this crime scene here, can we really say they were actually killed here? I'd say no, we can't. We can't actually say that. So which means the time of death, and all this, looking at this, there's all sorts of other factors that can go along with this. I know Sophia and I talked about this too the other night. And when it comes down to, for instance, I mean, you look at the clothes and all this, I mean, there's all sorts of different factors. I'm still looking at it. I'm just, what's the word? I'm going along with the theory at the moment. I'm not saying this is what I believe necessarily, but it is a little curious. But what happens if the bodies were frozen? They were killed elsewhere and stuffed in a freezer or something, some kind of an ice box maybe. And that's that's the thing about not being able to, I mean, and legally we just aren't entitled to it, but that's the hard thing about not being entitled to the full medical examiner's report, because in that they would state whether or not they could, if the tissues had been previously frozen, because you can see that under a microscope. Right.
But on just a basic autopsy report, we're not getting anything like that. So 100%. Is it possible? Yeah, it is. Unless they can prove to us otherwise, we have to leave it open as a possibility.
Right. Plus, on top of that, if they were frozen, let's say it was like an actual freezer, their bodies were stuffed in kind of a large freezer of sorts or some kind of a cold area where it's not going to really warm up a whole lot, and they're kind of just, their bodies are frozen. Then we're looking at delayed, if not completely stopped, decomp time. So they would just basically be sitting there, and it's kind of just suspended for the most part. And then, if not completely, and then we'd be looking at a whole different ballgame when it comes to that as well. So that's why I was like, well, maybe it's some of the clothes that kind of possible, not but at the same time, you're also looking once the clothes thaw, which the clothes looked, I mean, they looked wet, little wet. But at the same time, it definitely looked like there were some dry areas, quite a few of them. So if we're looking at dry areas, I mean, the body's thawing out, we'd be looking at a really nasty smell most likely. So
yeah, I'm trying to think because at the times when I was at the medical examiner's office, and then they had 3 separate types of freezers. They had like a cooler, then they had a freezer, and then they had a deep freeze. So the deep freeze was always used for those bodies that were going to be there for a while, for whatever the reason may be. And I'm trying to think. I know that I saw a particular person whom they took out of the deep freeze, and they put them, I can't remember if they put them in the freezer or if, maybe it was just the cooler by that point. But just the temperature changes in that, and I think they have to do it. I think they have to do a slow process, because I do remember seeing skin sloughage, and where it starts to cause blisters, liquid-filled blisters. But again, and that was just, obviously the body is going to start to do that, but it was kind of enhanced due to now they went from being super frozen to now we're kind of thawing them out.
Right.
So, but I can't really, it's been so long, it's hard, I can't remember the full process.
Yeah. Well, I mean, still, but I mean, it's, looking at that possibility too is, I mean, that's another interesting one too, because then you get the blood. If there is any blood left in the body when this actually occurred, then we're looking at all sorts of other things for that as well. I mean, would it be easier or harder? I mean, I would already just assume it would probably be, I would assume to some degree, it would be easier on, for instance, going at a child's arm, the way that was done. But in some instances, it might be difficult at the same time, a little more difficult possibly. But either way, we'd be looking at all sorts of kind of like when it comes to the tear, where that was at too. Let's say she was frozen, like frozen. I don't think they were. I think it was more likely if there was kind of freezing, they were probably thrown in something that wasn't necessarily a deep freeze, but more or less just kind of to slow the time, so that way there's no way to go and tell the exact time they died. If that's the point of why they put them in a freezer.
Yeah, but again, regardless, it would have shown on the slides, when they did their samples, took their tissue samples and looked under the microscope. But again, we don't, by law, we do not have access to those reports, and that's kind of frustrating, because I'm wondering if they were truthful in that, because a lot of what we see in the autopsy reports, it just, the wording doesn't make sense, how it's done doesn't make sense. And so I'm like, I pray that they did a better job than their actual medical examiner's report, but I don't know, I don't have a whole lot of faith.
Yeah, I don't think any of us do.
And what the autopsy report and the narrative states is not what we're seeing at the crime scene.
Right.
So.
You got any thoughts, Greg? After Sophia, of course.
No, go ahead.
Any thoughts on anything specific?
I mean,
just ragging on Rick.
Oh, I mean, just like, you can always send him an invite if he's interested in joining the conversation, of course. No, just about the possibility maybe the bodies were frozen. So that could adjust some things, right?
I've always had an issue with the theory that the bodies were placed there later, and the only reason is it's definitely possible. I'm not just discounting it or anything. I think there's been a lot of good facts that I've seen, a lot of good comments and things that have brought up that why that makes sense. And then I look at, how difficult that would be to get it back in there, possibly, right? How you're taking frozen bodies, how do you get them in? It's not impossible, especially there in that area and everything where people aren't hearing gunshots. If there were gunshots there, someone should have heard more than 3. Nobody is saying that they heard any more than 3 gunshots, and we know that there were several more. So,
well, what happens
I don't know.
Here's my question, see when it comes to the gunshots. What happens if those gunshots were actually the staged bullets?
Because they just wanted to be 3? 1, 2, 3?
Right.
Well, the people did say, too, didn't they say that they heard them in rapid succession? And none of these would appear to be an instance where you could do rapid succession with the exception of the 2 to Mel. But
Yeah, the only rapid thing is three shots to her. That's the only thing that really would make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
and yet we know that she was accounted for after that was reported when those shots were heard.
Right.
Correct? Because they said, yeah.
Correct.
With one neighbor, with the other neighbor, he wasn't sure. He couldn't give a specific date because Colin Prochnow, we pretty much have to discount what he says about the 3 rapid fire gunshots because that was on December 19th or something. So, but the other neighbor couldn't give a specific time. It was sometime between Christmas Day and New Year's Eve.
Right.
So there's a big gap. That is a pretty big gap, by the way. That's like, at least 5 days, 6 days or something like that.
And there's no telling if that was actual fireworks that they were hearing or gunshots.
Right.
Because it's around New Year's.
Right. No, that's an
So,
interesting
yeah.
point. But yeah, the rapid succession part, that's the part I'll be honest, that totally slipped my mind. But still, what happens if that's what ended up happening? They basically, whoever did this came in and.
Well, I'll give you, since we're just talking about theories and everything like that, and Rick is talking about kind of what we think. Well, obviously, if somebody's going to bring in bodies, they're going to do it late at night.
Mm-hmm.
I actually spoke with someone who, nice person, claimed to be a psychic, and kind of gave me the theory, gave me a scenario of what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things that they were taken in a van. They were moved out of the house. They were killed somewhere else, and then later on they were placed back in that home. So I don't know. I don't really believe in mediums, psychics, anything like that. It was a pretty interesting theory, and the person seemed very sincere.
Well,
so
I think that's the thing. That'd be an interesting one because who out of the people? Because once again, they were in comfortable clothes. So my guess is still it doesn't look like there was a forced entry. My assumption still, and that's my theory, it had to have been somebody they knew, somebody they were comfortable with. So if we're looking at who is comfortable with them, how many people own something like that they could transport them in that we know of?
I mean, you could get something. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I was thinking, well, you could rent something, but no, because that's going to leave.
Right.
That's going to leave a lot of traces that you may not want. But at the same time, any license plate or anything like that could be an issue. But what I started looking for was hostage situation stuff. Like, what would back up because that means that is a hostage situation where they're taken out of the house, at least one, if not all of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's still possible maybe to have killed one in the house. I don't know. But I mean, to freeze those bodies, let's say the bodies were frozen, you have to unfreeze them too,
mm-hmm.
right? And how do you get all of that blood to be in all of these different areas? You have to have the blood in that hallway, the blood next to the light, next to the front window, some of the blood that we've talked about on the other side of the kitchen island.
So we could be looking at somebody like, that, for instance, said something about a bucket of blood, right?
Well, I'd like to say something real quick in
Sure.
regards to the blood. Everything that was tested in regards to the blood around the house came back as Kamel.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of it, right? There was still some blood that was from David, from Kamel.
I'm
The
talking-
David one doesn't make sense.
I'm
talking about the floor and the wall and stuff. I'm not talking
Right.
about the gun.
Okay.
I'm talking about the computer, the floor, the wall,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. So, I mean, they could have killed her in the house, and they could have removed Ronnie and David.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But even then, it's
I mean,
where's the pool of blood? We'd have to still be like, where's the high velocity blood spatter?
Well, and that's just it. It clearly shows Kamel was, I don't know, for lack of a better word, attacked or whatever, tortured. That you see with the blood patterns and with the flow and the spatter patterns, She was moving. She was trying to get away. There's, she was there while she was being injured, but there's nothing there to show where the final blows took place. There's no proof of that anywhere in that house.
Well, the cell phone thing still drives me crazy. What is that, item 38?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
David's cell phone. It's like, wait a minute. So how is that possible that his DNA, his blood is not on it? It's something. His DNA, okay, his blood, it shouldn't be there, but DNA.
That laptop on the island, that should have his DNA on it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially if he was typing that last note and scrolling through the computer and putting music on and stuff like that. His DNA should be there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not showing up either.
Right. And they can say whatever they want. Oh, well, maybe the tests were not the greatest tests or this or that. But the fact is, if they don't have the blood there, they don't have his DNA there, they can't tie him to it.
Right.
That's really it. That's why they can loosely tie him to that gun. But it's pretty loose.
No.
But it is there.
No,
not with the nuclear DNA testing and PCR, SPR testing. Those are pretty darn accurate unless you're starting to get into mixtures and stuff, and that's when it starts to get a little bit more complicated.
Oh, right, absolutely.
But
no, it's...
And that's only because of trace DNA and, like some stranger sneezing on an item and that's brought into the house and now they're connected to the crime, which they had nothing to do with it, kind of thing. And so, but anyway, the laptop on the island was item 23.
Yeah, and it indicated as female. It's not enough genetic material to know of any minor contributors. If Kamel is included, they cannot exclude David and Rania, but it doesn't match.
Right.
Well, wouldn't they only do the exclude if there was mixtures?
It depends on how they're writing their report. Sometimes they do that, sometimes they don't. And so they're just saying, so don't ask me. I have no idea because their reports are written so screwily, if that's a word.
Yeah.
Screwily is a word. But
screwily. I like that word.
I'm creating it. It's a word.
Because I'm looking at it right now, and I think that they use the word excludes when there's mixtures, but they use the does not match David or Ronnie, or does not match such and such when it's just one person.
Well, on item 41-2, it's a mixture of two, and it just says does not match. But they say does not match. Doesn't say excluded. Oh, wait, it does say excluded, but then it says it doesn't match. So, again, how they're writing these reports is not consistent. But the fact of the matter is of what you guys were saying is item 23, if David was on there typing that stupid note that was on there, it would have been his DNA as one of the major contributors, along with the blood that obviously turns out to be Kamel's, but yet his DNA is not there.
Right.
No, could his DNA not be there? I mean, let me ask you about the testing, DNA testing. Is it possible to test just for blood and not for anything else? Is that...
No.
If you're
we just had this conversation.
So, if I'm testing the blood, right? I'm not testing the laptop surface. I'm not testing the keys of the laptop. I'm testing the blood.
Right.
Okay. So explain to me how you've separated only the blood from that key on that laptop.
I'm just wondering if the blood would override any DNA.
No.
It's on the same surface. You cannot separate the surfaces. Now, if you were just taking her blood out of her body, sure, you could just test her blood that way. But her blood is on the surface of those keys. They swab that surface. So they're picking up anything and everything on that surface as well as the blood that is visible. Right. And from there, they start to run the test. And from there is when they start to separate the contributors.
Because how does the blood get there without it getting with David's DNA is the reason why Kamel's blood is on the keyboard.
Well, they're trying to. The narrative is he typed that up, so he must have had her blood on his hands as he's typing. Well, if that were true, A, he's used that keyboard prior because it's his laptop, and B, now he's supposedly the last person to type on there, so he would be transferring his skin cells along with her blood. It would be mixed together on those keys on that laptop.
Right.
And at the same time, it doesn't make sense that it would be Kamel.
It's just
obviously.
Yeah, and it's just like the cell phone.
Yeah.
Is absolutely just like the cell phone. I mean, this is a keyboard that he uses all the time. He would have sneezed on it. There would be hair on there. There would be skin cells, just all kinds of things. I mean, you slough off 400,000 skin cells per day.
Right.
So.
Right. But so even though they're only testing the blood, all of that would still show up in the DNA.
Yeah.
Okay, no.
Because they swapped it.
Stop right there. You were thinking of this incorrectly. You're saying they're only testing the blood. That is not true. It turned out.
That's what they say, though.
Hold on. Let me.
No.
Hold on. Stop. Hold on. Now, it turned out to only be blood, but when they swabbed that area, they swabbed the whole thing. They don't just take a little bit.
No, they say swabs of blood.
Yeah, but
right. They did swab.
Where's the blood? Okay, if the blood is okay, look at your keyboard right now on your laptop, and look at your, like, say for instance, your letter A. Imagine there's blood on that letter A, and it's dried, and you now have to go and swab that. So you're going to get a sterile swab. You're going to wet it a little bit because you've got dry stuff there. And now you're going to take it and you have to apply pressure to that key, correct? To now swab and get up some of that blood, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so as you are doing that, you're not getting just the blood. You are now getting anything and everything that was within that area that your swab has now touched. You see the blood because that's what's visible. Now you take that, you put it in your tube, you take it to the lab then takes that and starts going through its process, and then it starts to pull out genetic codes. And here is where they should have found more than just one person's DNA. Yes, her DNA from the blood, but where's his DNA that was on that keyboard that they had to swipe with a wet swab to pick up that sample?
Well,
right, but when their results only talk about blood.
No. They swabbed the blood.
Right.
Because they were trying to find out who was bleeding. But as they're doing that and they're running, or as they're swabbing, they're picking up other things too that was left there. And that's where we're getting mixtures in certain items.
Yeah. You're getting blood mixtures. Blood mixtures is what they're talking about in some of these things.
Okay, here's
okay. Stop, please.
You're confusing and you're misunderstanding.
Of course I am.
This is why I'm trying to explain it to you. Okay, which one confuses you the most out of all of them, and we'll walk you through this.
Oh my goodness, where do I begin?
Just pick one. Just pick one of them. It doesn't matter. It's all the same process, so pick whichever one makes you more.
Okay, let's item 35.
Okay, so item 35, what they do is they're looking at the cell phone and they're like, okay, we need to get this swabbed.
It's a tissue. It's a tissue box. No, you're right. Sorry, you're right. It's a cell phone 35.
Yeah. Because I don't think they tested the tissue box. Okay, so now the cell phone, it doesn't matter. It's the same process. It seriously doesn't matter, just to help you.
I'm wrong. It's over. David's innocent. He's guilty. He's guilty.
So now they're coming up and they have this and they're like, okay, we need to get a sample. The tech comes up and says, okay, they pull out their swab, correct? They take it, they unwrap it, and they're like, okay, since this is dried blood, they have to now use a saline type solution, something to wet that swab. Then they take that swab and you're going to wipe it onto the surface of that cell phone. Wherever it is, you're going to collect your sample. If it's on the screen, if it's on the side, if it's on the back, doesn't matter. You're swiping that. And as you're swiping that, you're not only touching the blood, but you're now touching the surface of the cell phone. Do you understand that part?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you get that, They've now collected their sample. They've marked it, say, okay, this is 35-1, whatever the case may be. Well, or 35. We now have 35. And so they take that and they run it off to the lab. The lab now takes this. They open up this little thing. They plop it into their machine, and it starts to now pull out DNA codes, right? And then from there is when they're like going, if it's only one person involved, it will come up as a single source. They'll go, okay, there's only here, and it's only from the DNA, and it obviously is coming from the blood. Now, if it comes back as a mixture of two or more contributors to that sample, and what that means is within that sample, they somehow picked up either skin cells or whatever from the surface that was swabbed along with the blood that was collected. And this is where people are getting confused. So now they've picked up two or more people, and sometimes though it could be someone else's blood mixed in with their blood, etc., etc.
Right.
But
it is. So when they say on page 26 of the 40-page BCA lab results, when they say the DNA results are as followed, some of it is blood, some of it isn't.
No, what they're saying is they collected some of it from blood, some they swabbed area. But again, okay, so if you have an area, like say you have 35 with obvious blood, correct? And then you have, let's say, item 57 because it says no blood detected. They swabbed both of these surfaces, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you have 35, and then you have 35-1 and 57-1. And so the swab from 35-1 comes back as single source, right?
Mm-hmm.
DNA, or source that's indicated as female. And with 57, I think 57 does not say mixture of two or more. Let me pull up my report here. So
No.
57 is male DNA. Okay, so let's not do that one. Let me get which one? Okay, we'll do oh my God, speak here. The magazine. We'll do the magazine and
1B-1.
Yes, 1B-1, and then also the cell phone, so 35-1. And so with the mixture of the two or more, with that, we know that they clearly swabbed blood. On both instances, we know that. We swabbed the blood, but at the same time, they're applying pressure and they're picking up whatever was included in whoever else's DNA is in there. And so I was trying to find a good example that didn't have blood.
Look at 38.
Oh, no. Yes, yes. Thank you. Perfect example. 38 push keys.
Yeah, that is.
Let's do that. Perfect. Thank you. So we'll do 35 and 38. 35 we know is blood. 38 we know there wasn't blood detected. We know that because, and Sophia's got a whole bunch of slides put together, and we'll be covering this in our next video. But there's no blood visible, so they swab the keys. And now when they're swabbing those keys, they're coming up, when they run their test, it's a mixture of two or more individuals. But on that, they could only, for sure, include Kamel, but they could not exclude anyone, but they know that the major profiles do not match David or Rania. But yet it still has a mixture of two or more individuals with that one. And with the cell phone, number 35, same thing. They have a mixture of two or more individuals. Some of that DNA was the obvious DNA that came from the blood. The other DNA had to have come from the surface of the phone, but we know that didn't belong to David.
And when they refer to major profile, they're referring back to the victims that they took the blood from.
Mm-hmm.
And so if Kamel and David had popped positive for that mixture, then they both would have been named in those major profiles. But David was excluded from the cell phone.
Yes.
But they still had a mixture of two or more individuals.
Well, it's the weird part because that's his cell phone, too.
Exactly. And that's
Yeah.
kind of where we're saying that the whole big kafah is, because it's like, it's his cell phone. His DNA should have been one of the major contributors to that mixture, but
Right.
yet he's excluded.
So it had to have been wiped.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, exactly. Wiped, and then someone else who was handling that. They can't say they cannot exclude, let's see, where is it? They
cannot exclude 0.002%.
35.
Okay, 35. I'm looking at, with 35, David is excluded, but Rania cannot be excluded. She was not included, and they couldn't even get a full match, but they're saying she can't be excluded.
Right.
So
And neither can Kamel, right?
we all, yeah. So, but we know it's David's phone, and he's the only one that's excluded. But we're going back now to the blood and how they gather and how you're finding the DNA. Did I explain that? So that once you touch a surface, and with that swab, and you're collecting a blood sample, not only you're collecting the blood that's on there, but you're collecting any other sample that was left prior to that blood landing on that surface.
I think that's the most important thing that people need to understand when they read these 40 pages. And
Yes.
And the nuclear DNA is not just testing blood. It is testing anything with a nucleus in it. So any cell with a nucleus in it.
Which is
from
the
the
vast
human
majority
body.
portion of your body.
Yes. So it could be hair, it could be skin, it could be saliva, it could be
It could be semen, it could be sweat, it could be anything.
yes.
Yeah.
Except I don't know, I heard that urine doesn't have it, but
Well, yes, urine does not contain it doesn't have DNA because there's no nucleal cells within that, but yes.
so somebody could have pissed on these 3 bodies and it wouldn't show up, is what you're saying.
yeah.
That's basically it. And the main I was doing a little trolling there, but thank you for that. Thank you for explaining that. I mean, the main thing is like what William was saying. Like, okay, it's his cell phone.
Right.
Like, it's his laptop. It's his
It is.
notepad. It's his gun. These are his bullets that he allegedly loaded into this gun.
It's his house.
It's his house. It's everything. The
And
other
he's
thing,
excluded from just about
excluded.
everything.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, two other things, I guess, is obviously they're not testing anybody else. This to me was like the strangest thing. It makes more sense when you read the DNA results of why they wanted to make sure that they wanted to make it very, very clear. We only need to look at David, Kamel, and his wife. We don't need to test anybody else.
Right.
Can you imagine if they would have tested
And
other people?
and they
Who
should
knows?
They absolutely should have, because of the amount of people that go in and out of that house. They should have excluded all of the visitors and all of the close people who were within their realm. And only, I mean, that's what good science would do. Not because you're going to say, okay, I need your samples because I think you're guilty. It's like, I need your samples to help rule out, because we've got stuff we need to make sure that we've covered all of our P's and Q's. And the thing to remember that when they're saying, is not to be expected among an unrelated individual. They're only comparing the test against unrelated people. They did not run any tests against related people. Those are
Right.
2 separate tests. So there you
That's
go.
what makes those ones stand out, and because they're not consistent on that either. On some of these, they really make sure to say that it's only 99.9%, but on some others, they don't.
Yeah, and they're very easy to say. Again, 99.999% of the general population of an unrelated person. Well, show me that same percentage against a related individual. Now,
Well, even the general population, they don't have my DNA. They're not testing me. How are they saying? How do they come to that conclusion? And why do they put that in here and only put it in here with some of these?
well, again, you have to. Oh,
It's part of the computer program.
it is
No,
not.
I know we've talked about this. I just want you to explain it again.
Okay, I'm going to explain this to you. Here's the thing. Everybody has a certain number of alleles and how these alleles are arranged. And within your own spectrum, when they're looking underneath the microscope at David's and Kamel's and then Ranya's, and they compare those and they find matches within that. Now they're looking at samples. And so the sample is close enough to them that it doesn't match them. But because of its closeness, you can guarantee it's not going to be a stranger, is basically what they're saying. So this is why I'm saying, why didn't they test related individuals? So we could see the comparison of what the blood work would look like with a related person versus an unrelated person. Because I think most people would go, yeah, the general population, it's safe to say, wasn't there. But that doesn't mean that somebody else wasn't.
Well, speaking on that, because then you've got the genetic, alibi almost, if you will, saying, okay, this person wasn't there. Okay, chances are it's not this person here. But then what about, since we're talking about that, what about like actually, after hearing certain people's statements, for instance, we had Chris Peck and how that, this is what happened here. Well, they already proved that, okay, well, through the cell phone information, he didn't make that call, so he lied. And then you've got Danny August Mason, is who he pushes it to. And then he's got a whole story, and he makes some lies about it. Then he pushes to Mitch Heil. So you've got this whole thing where they're pushing in a certain direction.
We have the Klein issue.
Right, and they're straight up lying. So why wouldn't they go and check their alibi? That would be my question there. Because at that point, now you got to go and double check some things. Why wouldn't they do that?
Because they feel they already have their suspects.
But why not go and double check the lies? Doesn't make any sense.
It's probably scared of what they might find. But but at that point they already have their suspect, and it sounds like they were told they're not going to use any resources to look into anything else because they already have who they think did this. And that's one of the most troubling things right there. Right. Is that they spend all of their research, all the documents, everything like that is time spent to try to prove David Crowley guilty, and they fail. At no time do they ever even attempt to look at any other suspects. So when they say at the very end of this document, the reason why they think David Crowley is guilty because they couldn't find any other suspects, it is a slap in the face to everybody because they never looked for any other suspects.
Right.
I'd like to go on to item 38 to talk. We're talking about staged crime scenes, but unless anyone else has anything else on this.
Oh no, I'm cool.
Item 38.
So that is one of the biggest things. That's one of the things that really stood out to me when we got the 464 photos. Item 38 is the gun safe, and I don't know if you have that image or not, or if you can pull that up. But it is one of the strangest things. This is, to me, it looks like this does not look like a double murder suicide. To me, this looks like something happened. Somebody was trying to break into their house. They popped that thing open, pulled out the gun, and it was on. The thing that bothers me about it, all this being a staged crime scene, is that if it's staged, which I do believe on multiple levels, however you want to look at it, it's staged. You can argue who staged it, but why is this open? If these are hired killers, if these are professional killers, I don't believe that they're going to leave this thing open.
Mm-mm.
I mean, this to me, and this is Kamel. This is on her side of the bed, most likely. I believe that too. But this has her DNA right on it, and there's a mixture of two. Somebody else's DNA is on this. So even if somebody else is opening this, is doing this, why keep it open? Why not keep it shut? How is that? That's always bothered me about some of the stage things. Some of the things that are staged that I see are just, it's almost like you're trying to create a conspiracy. You're trying to create all of these many rabbit holes for people to follow down, to confuse them, to get them to focus on these things. and not really look. Even the way that they number this 43 here, like right there, it's not 43. It's 43 in a different because it's 43, I think, in the property and evidence. But someone from my fan club a long time ago was like, well, they don't even have the actual numbers right or anything. It's like there's lots of different sets of crime scene numbers. So that's why you'll see.
They do have them right. It's just one, like you said, one is going through the property and collection. So like Apple Valley has their sequence of numbers. And then because they list things that they either look at or notice or take. And then you've got the BCA who then goes through their numbers and they're numbering things as they're sampling and taking, stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, I think item 38 is related to the DNA. Item 43 is related to the actual gun safe. So, but it's probably because it's part of the property.
Coming from the same thing, but they're two different entities using their own numbering system so they can track what they're doing. It's just that simple.
Yeah, I think it's all from the Dakota County, or yeah, maybe it's different.
Apple Valley does one list, and then the BCA has their own list.
I see. Yeah. The Apple Valley does the property,
correct,
evidence and property.
Correct.
Right, and the BCA does their own thing.
See, the question is,
but this is strange because of the gun. There's another magazine, but the real strange thing, and we've talked about this, but for anyone who has not heard about this, the keys being in there is a no-no. You never put the keys in there, and that's another thing. If you're staging this thing, if you're doing this, I don't understand why the keys are there. There's just so many weird things about this gun safe that has bothered me.
Well, and the question is, do any of these keys actually go? And it does appear, but what do those other keys go to? Maybe this key was meant. These were meant to stay in here, and maybe they just. I mean, there's a lot of things.
Well, we had looked that up in a previous. I think you were on that show, William, maybe too. I think you were.
Probably.
It was a while ago, but the keys match, the shape of the keys and everything did match the manual. I think you were the one who found the actual manual for it, and we kind of went through that, and the keys looked exactly the same. So obviously we didn't take the keys and test them to confirm that, but they were pretty much the same size and everything. And
yeah, this key right here looks like that's the one that goes in here. Question is, what do these other keys go to?
Yeah, locks and things like that. Probably there's a couple locks in the in David's car, in the trunk of his car. So
right.
That could be for that.
That's my thoughts. So, but the thing is where did the murder weapon come from? Was this in the gun safe?
They say it came from here. They say it came from this safe.
Exactly. So the thing is, though, is we're not seeing David's blood or DNA anywhere. So we're looking at somebody who is wiping everything down. We see his blood on the magazine, but nowhere else. Yeah, I mean, so we got weird things going on with that. So question is like, was the gun just, were they killed before this actually occurred and then they were shot? Or were they killed with that gun and then they just opened this, or like they put it in here? I don't know. They did something, right? I mean, I do agree. This does look like some kind of a weird rabbit hole. It was just set.
Like why it stays to make it seem like, but it's like, okay, so David goes here, he grabs the gun and shoots everybody and leaves everything open. Like, I don't know. It's just, and it fits in with the crazy theory, I guess, where he went crazy, he snapped, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, it looks more like Kamel was trying to protect her and trying to protect her family.
Right.
Here, I don't know. That's what I was
saying. Yeah, and see, that's the funny thing. If they want to go with the narrative, it was Kamel who grabbed the gun.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if she's the one who grabbed the gun, is she the one that just kind of? I mean, that's the only thing is we'd have to go down.
And then why is her DNA? Her DNA is not on the gun, right?
Right.
But her DNA is on the gun safe.
Right. So yeah, we can. Let me bring that up right here. Handgun. No, it's just David and Rania.
Yeah. So
it doesn't make any sense.
There, but it's no.
Yeah, and that's
nothing
the part
makes sense.
Right.
It
that's the
add
only
up.
thing that makes sense, right? Is nothing.
Yeah, no, that's
And it's frustrating.
right.
It is.
But the thing is like, so if you have her opening the gun safe, then was she taken all of a sudden, and David got away and got the gun, and just happened to just grab it in a certain way that his DNA is not anywhere, but then he does everything
There's
else.
the missing DNA. That's the problem is there's missing DNA. So if there's a mixture of two or more on that gun,
I just want to throw something out there real quick when you're done.
Yeah.
Just when you're done.
No,
Okay.
I mean on the actual trigger, there's
Mhm.
a mixture of two or more people.
Right.
One of those is David, but it does not match Kamel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like you said, unless it's Rania or something,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Rania snapped and just
You have somebody
had
else
enough.
with the magazine. It's
And
kind of the
magic
same
bullets,
thing.
and yeah,
You
I'm
have
gonna be
a
honest, probably-
magazine.
It's probably those My Little Ponies and their pony magic that did all this. I mean, David did take a picture, and there was, if I'm not mistaken, I believe there was one up on the kitchen counter. Maybe it was that pony magic, But, the thing is, when it comes down to this, just thinking on this here, what happens if, we know that I believe it was David's right hand that was missing, and then it was both of Kamel's hands, and then all of Rania's right arm.
Right arm. Right.
So if we're looking at both Kamel's hands are gone, now just bear with me here for a second. It's out there, but with whoever staged this, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if they did this. But what happens if the hands were actually used that way to actually set the rest of the crime scene up? That's why they took the hands.
Well, that would fall in line, to me, that would fall in line with the theory they were killed somewhere else.
Bingo.
And these things, they had to be removed, et cetera, et cetera. And it takes us down other rabbit holes.
Right. And
But I think some people really want us to go down these different rabbit holes, which is why I've really tried to keep my focus on, maybe to a fault, on just what did they use to prove David Crowley guilty? And at some point it becomes a broken record because you have to move on from that.
Right.
Because there is nothing that proves he's guilty.
Well, exactly. But so for the next part of it would be to just start, okay, well, what exactly sets this scenario up, and of actually what happened? And I think that's where it goes down, is there's, we have some of these rabbit holes, but this with a staged crime scene, and I'm sure Catherine and Sophia will probably agree with me. I'm sure all of you guys will probably agree with me on this. When it comes down to that, then now we have to kind of isolate what exactly happened. We have to kind of figure out, okay, well, they set this scene up this way, but how did it actually occur? And we've got no blood at the crime scene. The trash was taken out, and we've got the actual trash schedule and when they would have come to pick it up. So we're looking at, if I'm not mistaken, I believe, let's see, where was that? I think that was like, where did I put that? No.
While you're looking for that, can I say something real quick about the photo we just left about the safe?
Sure.
Because I was waiting for Sophia to say it, but she didn't, because she was looking in the reports, and she found within the reports where it states that there was no blood in the master bedroom at all.
Right.
And so that means, by a process of elimination, it means that they were not collecting blood off of that safe. So it had to have been from her handprints that were left behind, so the DNA she left when she opened that safe.
Right.
All of the written reports from the BCA file request, none of them mention blood whatsoever for item 38.
Why would any idiot claim anything that there was Kamel's blood? Kamel is the victim here. Why would there ever be her? Why would she have her own blood here? That makes absolutely no sense.
It goes back
Have
to
her blood.
they don't understand that DNA comes from more than just blood. So if the term DNA is used, automatically in their brain, it's blood. So blood has to be there. And oh my God, I can't. If I could pound it into their heads, I'd do it.
How would her blood get there? How would she get blood on her own hands? I don't understand any of it. Oh, good.
Yeah, thank you.
It's
But
weird.
and because they say DNA, they're like, oh, it's her blood. And it's like, there's no blood there.
There's no blood there. So,
Right.
But even if it is her blood, then she bled herself, or she cut herself and then went into the gun safe. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, and again, this is why it's so frustrating. How I know between Sophia and I swear to God, if we could take a stupid stick and smack people with it, we would, because it's like I don't know how many times one person has to be told DNA
You guys are talking about
in more than just blood. It's on it's in the skin cells. When you touch something, you are leaving your DNA behind. So when she touched that safe to open it, she left her DNA there. And they can't comprehend that. The minute they're like, oh, they found her DNA, so see, there was blood. And I'm like, oh my God. You can't fix stupid.
Absolutely.
talking
The
about
police
my
report
fan
clearly
here.
They clearly state on page 23 there is no blood in the master bedroom. And then in the BCA lab request reports, Joe Cooksley briefly talks about that. And then he says there's nothing forensically of value in the child's bedroom either.
That's right.
Right.
So, I mean, it's right there in black and white. There's no blood.
You would just
So-
have to read the documents for yourself in order to figure that out.
Oh.
Kind of shows maybe they
God
have.
forbid.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, if they're going to be my fan club, they need to start reading these documents. This is getting ridiculous. Something wrong here.
I mean, how lazy, right?
Well, absolutely. Well, and the thing is, like, there's a lot of things that group is not doing, or any of these people that are, Greg's fans. They're not doing. They don't do their due diligence when it comes to checking on things. For instance, okay, so why isn't there any blood? Of course, I'm sure they've got some stupid reason as to why there's no blood at the crime scene. Probably along the lines of Paleolithical. I'm sure either that or just somehow when they were doing their their little jig, when they were with their bodies moving, they just bust out a mop and some bleach, maybe cleaned it all up. I don't know. They probably
I
got
don't
some
know. I mean,
stupid.
No, they didn't do that either because the officers specifically mentioned that they didn't smell any chemical smells.
See.
So
So when they were doing their jig, it had to have been water.
I guess it did. I
Yeah.
mean, how else did they get all that blood out of the carpet before,
Hey, that explains why the music was on, right?
Yeah, even though that speaker died probably a long time ago, speakers only last for the maximum 10, 12 hours.
Right.
So after that, it's dead and gone. So that has no relevance. The
No
music
pun
playlist
intended.
to me has absolutely no relevance for anything.
Right.
I mean, if you could see when that music playlist started and stuff like that, that's some hardcore data, some hardcore metadata. If you could get that, but I mean, there's just so much speculation, and so that music playlist was used in Eric Nelson's film too. I mean, it was crazy. Like you're saying this guy killed his family, and you're gonna play that song at the end of this movie.
Right.
There's some really weird stuff going on. I mean, these are just Satanists to me. They're just some evil people. So it doesn't shock me
Freemasons,
that my
so makes
fans
sense.
really have no idea what they're talking about. That's why nobody really pays attention to them. But
Well,
they
100%.
tried it. They keep trying. So keep on trying. There's nothing wrong with
Keep
that.
on trucking.
It's a free keep on trucking. It's a free country. So I mean, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to think. They seem more focused on Lori right now. She's gonna, I don't know, she's coming after all of them or something, like the Terminator. And,
She is.
I don't know,
She is.
just crazy stuff going on with them. And it's like, dude, you guys. So we got these are the same people that were like, why are they making videos that are saying we're not going to kill ourselves and stuff like that, which Dan did a long time ago. I've said it on multiple streams and everything. Like, okay, well, why are you worried that somebody's going to come to your house over the David Crowley case? That's not going to happen.
No,
That's
as
not
if
gonna
it was
happen.
truly.
I'll definitely tell you if I hear anything like that, believe me, those people would not be part of the group. I would not associate with anyone who would want to do any violence to that. I don't even just need to say that to any of you or to anybody in our group, because I know they're not going to do any violence. We're not violent people. This just shows how insane some of these people are. And they make it all about them when it should be all about me, right? They're my clubs. Really should be.
Hey, that sounds like you're getting jealous of Lori now.
I am, actually. Yeah, like, what the heck, you know? So, but, I mean, that's all fun. It's all fun and games. It's all trolling. But, you know, it's like, okay, whatever. Well, when it really comes down to it, like, this is not about you. Anything that I've said about where people live, that is specifically for people that are relevant. That would mean people that have contacted me, people that have threatened me. That means people that have reached out to me, that have tried, you know, to dox me and things like that. But these other people are not even relevant.
See, Greg's still kicking, he's still standing.
It's not gonna have nothing to worry about. Okay, you don't have to worry about anything like that. My only thing where I talked about where I know people live, the only people that I know where they live are the people that are these Gray State goons. They're the only ones that are really relevant. When I think about my hater, they should be my biggest fans, really, and they were, because they're the ones who started this whole thing. They're the ones who reached out to me. I didn't reach out to them. I didn't reach out to Sean Wright. I didn't reach out to Hendricks. I didn't reach out to Danny August Mason. They reached out to me. So when I talk about where I know where people live, these are the people I'm talking about. I'm not talking about anybody else. They're not relevant. These are the only 3 relevant people that I find very, very shady, and their actions are very suspect and just very, very strange. The way that they would treat somebody who was just looking into this case, you know, and then would kind of act like they were my friend, act like they were cool, act like things were fine, and do the bait and switch.
Right.
You know, Sean was a little more upfront. Mason Hendricks was a little more sneaky about it and more respectful. Mason Hendricks has never threatened me. I can say that, you know.
Just to kind of. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, go for it.
No, that's it. I'll keep ranting. So.
So I mean, the one thing I think we could probably all agree, this is, if this is truly government related, something like this, I'm sure all of us probably would have been targeted for all sorts of other kinds of damages and all this kind of stuff by now, I'm sure. Because at this point, we've already been able to prove, I mean, we can without a doubt say David didn't do it. It's impossible. But, I think that's one of those other really weird things, because this is like, well, he was looking into, you know, the occult, and he's looking into New World Order type of activity and things like this, and plans and agendas and all this. You know, he's talking to people like Alex Jones. I think that's another thing that was being pushed as well, which is, I think that was all kind of like a smoke and mirrors type of scenario. You know, me personally, I don't lean on this as this was like, you know, some government conspiracy. No, I don't think so. There is stuff there that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors with this case. I think that's when it comes to the stories, the statements that were said, the documentary that came out, because there's no reason that documentary even needed to even take place, really. Anybody that watches that, yeah, you're going to get some stuff, and they really try to do their damnedest to really push that David's guilty. But really, if anybody that's got any just basic critical thinking skills, right, you're going to see this movie doesn't make any sense. This doesn't prove anything like David's guilty.
Yeah, and this was a different era with the whole YouTube thing. So we were seeing a lot of videos that people were coming out and just saying, yeah, David, you know, that the government killed him.
Right.
And a lot of us got thrown into that same camp. It was like, well, now if you're even questioning it, and I don't know if these people who were saying that, I feel like they were just, that's what they do, and then they move on to other cases.
Right.
They're not really, you know, you don't hear them talking about it now. A lot of them have no idea even some of the simple facts. on this case, but they do that with all of these cases, which is not good. It is not good to just jump in because you want to be right, because you want to be first. You know, I don't care about that. The only thing that I care about is whatever the truth is, I want to make sure that people have access to it. Whatever the documents are, whatever research that we can help people, I want to make sure they have access to it. I don't care if they believe that I'm right or if I'm wrong. It does not matter to me. It's not going to change my view. It's not going to change anything that I'm doing. But I know that that's what helps me, is having access to documents, having access to research, is having good conversations like we're all having now. That's what helps me grow. That's what helps me with this case, you know, not just a little fanfare thing. And so with Alex Jones, we didn't get any of that. He didn't really say anything. Several times people tried to bring it up. He wasn't going to talk about the David Crowley case. That was another strange thing too, that really stuck out to me. That kind of made me, you know, that's when I started to wonder, well, maybe this is bigger than just his movie. Maybe this is bigger than just, you know, people that he knew. Maybe there is really something here. And I still don't know. You know, that's like I tell you guys all the time, I'm still on phase 1 7 years later. I may be here 77 years later, right here on phase 1, with just making sure that people understand that there are a lot of us out here that think David Crowley did not do this, and we have the evidence to back that up. Now, a lot of people don't focus on that, right? Our haters, my fan club, things like that, they don't focus on that because that would really prove them wrong. Right. So they just nitpick at all these other things.
Catherine, Sophie, you guys got anything to say about any of that? Or
I'm way off topic, by the way. I'm sorry about that. I know we're supposed to be talking about stage crimes.
I have nothing to add.
We got more about what proves, you know, the crime scene was staged. If we can move on to item 8, to the knife.
Okay, let's go to item 8. I'm good with that.
This is another weird one. Like, if you're staging a perfect crime scene, the gun safe doesn't make sense. A lot of this doesn't, right? You don't leave the back door open if you're going to stage a perfect crime scene or anything like that. So this is obviously not that case. But item 8 is very interesting.
Well, see, for me, just to kind of just segue just real quick, just for a second, the thing that doesn't make any sense about that too is, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with if there was frozen bodies and things like this potentially, or just bodies that had been cooled, they've been like in a cooler or something, just drop back off. Having that door open is going to keep that temperature kind of flowing around, and it's going to, even then with, since we got the temperature gauge there, I mean, I'm not 100% sure if they had a sensor, but I would assume they probably did, had a sensor, so anytime it dropped below a certain temperature, it'd kick on. I'm pretty sure that's how theirs was set up. So if it dropped below a certain temperature, it would just kick on to go and get the house back to that temperature. So you're going to be looking at a fluctuating temperature. So you could be looking at thaw time actually being like kind of erratic.
If it's set to hold at 68.
Right. So basically we come down to that temperature. So any kind of gust going to the house that would reduce the temperature, it would kick the heat on again.
Yeah, we haven't talked much. I'd like to, later on, I'd like to talk more about the dust around the house, especially in those other rooms.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I don't think I've actually even looked at
what?
dust.
Wait.
Yeah, dust. Like,
I can't hear you. You went in and out.
I think you wanted to talk about the dust after.
Oh.
I think that's an interesting one. I've never actually looked at the dust in the house. I mean, if I'm being honest, I've never really actually looked at that. Like, that's an interesting one right there. But you know, before we get too off track, we can get right back on the.
Well, I mean, you could look at, because I know we're moving on from the gun safe, but you could look at the dust on the gun safe. Yeah. And look at the dust on the desk or on the area around the gun safe.
Oh, dust.
Yeah.
Dust.
Yeah.
Not desk. I kept hearing desk for some reason. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all good.
I'm like... Okay. Well, because when Greg was talking, he was going in and out for me, and I wasn't getting the whole conversation.
Right.
Yeah, I've been having some major Wi-Fi issues today. So.
Mm.
No, it's all good. I get it. Mine's been kind of in and out too, I'm sure. But I mean, you have a good point here about the dust too. So if we're looking at that, which I think this is right here, you can see there's definitely clear fingers. It looks like somebody kind of rushed to kind of, you got their hand up there and they're just like bam, 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 bam. You know, but we know this is, you can see there's one. It looks like one finger, kind of it really hit down, or slipped there or something, right over in this area. There's no dust up here on top of these keys. It doesn't really look like. But you got right here these little smudge marks, it looks like. I mean, that's an interesting thing, you know, going after dust and actually taking a look at it. So, like, what exactly happened? We can always potentially look at a potential action that occurred. And even then right here, too, the dust isn't super heavy. This is weird, where these are all placed.
Yeah.
There's, like, the dust here. We're seeing it looks like there's just a little bit of buildup.
Somebody was touching it.
Right, and see, so you've got this right here, there's no dust, but there's a lot of dust in this area. All this, that's interesting. That's a good find there, Greg. I've never looked at that, I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, there's some other photos that kind of give you the actual keys and everything too, and even the whole cabinet where this thing is on. But this is not the only strange place with dust. But hey, if you're looking for something to look into, check out the dust in some of these rooms here, and
consider it done.
It's pretty interesting.
Now you've got me on dust. I got to go look at the dust now.
Yeah, check out the dust in David's office bedroom too. But anyways, we can move on from that.
I'm gonna let Will handle that rabbit hole. I have way too many. So.
Oh, don't worry, I'll definitely handle that. I'm very, very curious about it. So. But yeah, the knife. We'll get back to that. That's a very, very good point with the knife.
Oh, you want to know a different rabbit hole?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Jesus. Here, I'm going to put you on this one because like I said, I have a nest of them to go down.
All right, I'm good.
Kitchen table.
Okay.
Look at the kitchen table for the in November. For the Day One Journal.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at that kitchen table.
Right.
When, okay, right, what?
No, I know what you're talking about. They got the same paper towel. Well, I'm probably not on the same rabbit hole.
No.
So.
Oh, she tried to send me down this rabbit hole the other day, and I'm like, I don't think so. This girl keeps coming up left and right. I'm like, nope.
Well, I'm listening.
And I told Catherine, I was like, we're working on enough crap right now, but I was looking for something specific, and then this just popped out of nowhere, and I'm like, oh, crap, we already have enough. Okay. What are you seeing there? No, there's better photos of that table, by the way.
Oh, is there? Okay. There's the My Little Pony. There's the paper towels. There's this weird thing here.
How many chairs are there?
There's 3 chairs, no 4. And there should have been 4 because in the Day One Journal there was 4.
Yeah. All the way through the end of it, there's 4 chairs. There's always 4 chairs.
I know where we can get a better picture. Let's see. Backdoor area. I think I have it going from here.
So you guys get to find the 4th chair.
Yeah, that's a good question. Where the hell would the 4th chair be?
I think it's by the garage door.
Is it? Let's see.
But like going into the garage door? No?
I never really pay attention to that room with the fireplace.
Yeah, there's nothing back there. This is the kitchen table.
Wait, whoa, right there?
That's the kitchen table.
No, hold on.
Yeah, that's
a black bag over there, right there by the water bottles. What's in that? It looks like trash to me. Could that have been their wrapping paper from their Christmas present?
That's what I think.
Yeah, that's possible. That definitely looks like it.
And they didn't open it?
Don't even mention it.
That's weird.
No.
Which why would this be in here though? But that's the thing, that doesn't make any sense. Well, unless they're just recycling it, which I mean I can kind of understand that, but then you got to look at
like maybe he hadn't taken it out yet. That may give us a good timeline of when.
Unless they're in the process of taking things down and throwing things away.
Right.
Which they definitely are. If you look at their that kitchen table, not that kitchen, the kitchen island table, and their stockings, you can see that their stockings are down. So obviously they were already, to me, that shows
they'd already opened their Christmas presents.
Yeah, I mean, you don't take your stockings down before Christmas Day. I don't think any of them died before Christmas Day.
No, that's
even after. I mean, yeah,
we
even New Year's or something.
Yeah, we talked about
keep
this.
Ours up.
Yeah, we've talked about this like last week. Last weekend we spoke about this in a discussion about the time frame. I mean, we're looking. If you look at just how if you exclude the chance for cooling and all this kind of stuff for slower decomp time, then we'd be looking roughly around, I think it was January 7th, I think it is, something like this. We're looking at about the 10-day range at most. Then you've got other things that we could be looking at potentially, is if there was cooling or freezing, then we could be, it would still, we're looking at, the time frame is still after Christmas Day. Because, well, the Christmas presents are done, and then even then, I mean, like, we don't usually take, well, actually, I take it back. Our Christmas stockings, yeah, those are done Christmas Day.
Nobody takes those down Christmas Eve or anything like that before.
It's Christmas Day, and then people take them to their rooms. Well, I mean, some people, I don't know. That's how I always was. My kids, no, we take the stockings. They don't need all that damn
Christmas morning, maybe because you're emptying them out and everything, so I can see that, but not Christmas Eve. There's no way they died on the 24th. And that's best case scenario. Mm-hmm. That's a whole nother issue.
I would argue it would have to at least been, if we include freezing time and all this kind of stuff, we're looking at least Christmas Day. But I would still argue probably not. I think it would have to be after Christmas, because generally, I mean, the family themselves, they were saying they're doing something different. They're just kind of staying home. They're doing their own thing for Christmas. So that was for that Christmas party, I suppose. But still, regardless, I mean, they made it pretty abundantly clear they're kind of just keeping themselves. And then David's saying the same thing, through his journal this whole time. He's basically just keeping to himself. Then, of course, you get the weird statements from the friends. The only one we can actually really account that actually did sign anything and actually did anything, we already know that through the contracts and everything, was Mitch Heil. There's all sorts of different rabbit holes we can go down, and all the different things.
And there is, even with that kitchen table, I know the chair is definitely something to look into. Her backpack, actually Ranya's backpack and things like that, like, if school ended on the 19th and the backpack is still there, all that stuff is still there, I don't know. I mean, that was one of the things where I thought, well, maybe something weird happened. Maybe a hostage situation
very well
could have started as early as the 19th. I don't know.
Or was she getting in the backpack ready to go back to school?
Right.
No, because she wouldn't have went back to school until a couple weeks. So that wouldn't have been until January.
Yeah, I mean, she
January,
could have,
maybe.
Sure.
Unless that's what you mean. That maybe.
Yes, that's what I mean.
I see.
Because if you're looking at not the narrative, but what the evidence is showing, and the body's not being there until the first week of January, so she would have been getting ready to go back to school at that time, so they would get the backpacking, start getting it ready, but then something happened to stop that from occurring.
Yeah, we'd be looking, Cyprus is calling the 13th, so we'd be looking at least the 12th at that point, if she got getting her backpack ready, which would make sense if she was getting her backpack ready for the following day, which is the 13th. Let's see, I got the calendar up here. 13th falls on a Tuesday, so we'd be probably looking at a Monday, so the 12th. So we're looking at like the 11th is what we'd be looking at. So really, we can actually adjust the time frame because that backpack is that's a good call right there. Because then did we even get? I don't think we got any information what was in the backpack, but it's a kid's backpack, obviously, and we can assume chances are it's probably her school stuff. If that's her school stuff, it doesn't make any sense to have it out there, 3-4 days before, because that's where they eat dinner, right? You'd assume. Maybe they didn't for a few days, who knows? But still, having that backpack there, for like 2 weeks doesn't make any sense. You'd assume they probably had dinner. On top of that, we already know that they had been cooking because there's a curry up on the stove. But then you have to ask yourself, okay, what about the plates? Were they actually in the dishwasher or not? I mean, there's all sorts of different things we'd have to go and answer for that. But I'm still getting at the whole thing.
That's another one we have to cover if we're talking about what is staged and everything. That whole dishwasher too.
Yeah, no, the dishwasher is another really interesting one. And yeah, there's plates in there. Yeah, you can see there's definitely looks like 3 plates.
There's also soap. There's soap in there, like it's ready to go.
Right.
Something happened that stopped them from doing what they would normally do.
Right. Let's take a look at that. Plus, we've also got the hair color in here. Yep. Let's see, what do we got in here in the dishwasher? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plates. And they were eating. It looks like curry. You can go up on the stove and it shows curry. Having light bulbs out, that doesn't make any sense. That's a little weird.
Watch for the yellow cup. The yellow cup moves too.
Does it really?
In those photos, it's there and then it's not there and then it's there again. Yep.
No kidding. That's bizarre.
It is.
Why would they move the
But
yellow
then
cup?
when
That
you
makes no
start to
sense.
see that things are moved throughout the whole place, and
We're back at the yellow cup there. Yeah, I'm not convinced
there.
about that.
Yeah, the yellow cup is there on that one. Let's see. I want to see it.
They also opened the back door to try to make it look like what it would look like if it was 1/4 inch. So they're moving things around.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yeah. No, they should have taken a picture of that and just like, okay, let's get a measurement here. Okay, let's open this much.
Well, it's weird that they would take a photo of the back door closed.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't understand that. And then later on, they take it where it's even more open than 1/4 inch. But the first respawners, that's why it's like I really try to focus on what they said, on what they did on their photos, because that really shows what when they showed up. That's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Are we sure the chair from the kitchen is in like the basement?
I didn't see it in the basement. There is a chair in the master bedroom, but it's not the same chair.
Okay. Well, I'll go and run through here while we're still talking, because I know we still have the knife to talk about. So, but that I'm gonna be looking at these. I'm gonna be looking at these rabbit holes for sure.
And
so
so
we got the kitchen table. What was the other one we were talking about? The dust.
The dust and.
Okay, go to photo 4411.
4411.
It's in the
BCA.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And you'll see exactly
BCA
what
ones
she's
are
talking
better.
about. Good eye, Sophia. Oh my gosh, girl. You need to be one of those puzzle people.
It's not just me, though. I mean, I had other people bring stuff to my attention, and I need to give them credit.
Okay, well, whoever found that, good eye.
Right. 4411.
That was actually.
Yeah, I can't believe we're back to the yellow cup there.
Well, no, I mean the thing is, it's
cool.
a good point. That's interesting. Is there's no yellow cup here, and that would have been right here.
Yep, and it's not there.
So where the hell did it go? Ghost cup.
And why? I guess maybe one of the officers got thirsty.
Yeah, probably. Takes their mask off. Oh, let's not mind the smell. Let's take a drink here. Idiots.
Mhm.
I mean, honestly,
Yeah,
if an officer
down
did
the
that
other-
straight up.
If you're looking for rabbit holes, if we're doing a show on rabbit holes there. Look at what's on the refrigerator. There's another one. Things are moving around there too. Let's put it like that. But I don't know. The yellow cup theory, I don't know.
I mean, it's still interesting.
No, it's interesting
very
because there's
interesting.
no reason why that cup should not have remained in that dishwasher.
Right.
It could still be there though.
But it's not there. You can see as plain as day. It's
I
this
don't know.
one's right next to that brownish whatever that
Could be
water
the
bottle
angle.
type thing, and
Right.
then you look at the other photo and it is not there.
That's bizarre.
You clearly see the water bottle, but you definitely don't see the yellow.
Right. That's bizarre. That is blowing my mind right now.
Greg is giving us crap about the yellow cup, but he clearly brought up the dust.
That's true.
I'm not only did I bring up the dust, I'm going to bring up the black Sharpie theory there. If we're going to really go for it.
Okay, I'm all
There was a
ears.
black Sharpie that was moved along with a bunch of other things that was underneath that gun safe, in the shelf underneath the gun safe. And in other photos, it's on the ground. So I think they're
And the paper
moving
towel,
things around. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're nefarious thing. I think they're innocently moving things around. The yellow cup could be another thing. I really think it's just the camera angle.
No, it's
I could
not
be
the
wrong.
camera angle.
No, you
I
can see
will-
right
There's
It's
here.
just two different cameras, two different
There's a
people
bowl.
doing two
No,
different cameras.
you
they
can
are
miss a
opening
bright yellow
there.
cup next to a bowl in another drinking cup when you clearly
No.
see the other drinking cup, but yellow's missing.
Yeah, yes. The bowl was actually over
Yeah.
here. Yeah. Well, I
It's a
see what you're
different
saying.
angle. It's a different.
It has nothing to do with the angle. It has everything to do with what you can and cannot see. It's there's enough there. You should be seeing that
Yeah,
yellow
that-
cup. It is
The
not
yellow
in
cup
there.
should have been right here. Yeah. And then this bowl was actually sitting up more.
And Greg poo-pooed those like years
I didn't
ago,
poo-poo.
too.
No, I did not
Oh,
poo-poo
you
them.
did too.
No, I have heard that theory for 4 or 5 years now. I did not poo-poo it. I'm just keeping an open mind to it. That's all.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, 'cause it should have been. Yeah, like right here.
How many
I have not
years
made.
did
I have not doxed you and made any videos on you because of the yellow cup. So we're okay.
it start to feel a little unloved?
Well, there's still time, I guess.
Sophia fan club now.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I'm starting up my own group now. The yellow cup fact and fiction.
Oh, jeez.
Just don't call it two
After
plays
you're
at a
with me,
time.
Oh,
and
God.
We're doing the dust.
I'm gonna have my photo instead of that weird eagle thing. It's gonna be the Bohemian Grove owl. That's gonna be my photo.
And a
Alright,
big old
sorry.
yellow cup.
You gotta
Yellow
make some weird
cup
phrase on there
owl.
too.
There's an owl drinking from a yellow cup.
Yeah, that seems pretty legit. Yeah, no, there's a lot of weird things about the movement and stuff, but so yeah, let's get to that knife. Let's definitely get to the knife now. I think it's about time. Let's see. All right. Well, Greg, you brought it up, so I'll let you lead that.
No, I just think there's something weird about that knife. The knife is open. That seems like a clear sign of a struggle. Somebody is struggling for that knife.
Mm-hmm.
In the DNA, pull up that, we should at least see 2 people struggling for that knife. And I think the other thing is, if somebody is staging this crime scene, a perfect crime scene, why would they leave it open unless they're scared of touching it?
Right. That's a good point.
But that knife being there, the knife should not be there. The knife is not mentioned in any of the hit pieces on David or anything like that, and it's really one of the things to me that really stands out. Aside from I think the next thing, if we want to talk about, is the bullet, the unspent round. But before we get there, just talking about that knife. I think there's just something very, very strange there. So when you look at the knife, which is item 8, the knife is open with several blood stains on it. There's blood stains on the blade and on the hole of that blade. In my book, I have a picture this is from the BCA 488 document, page 464, and it pretty much, they draw the actual knife, and they show you item 8, and they show you where the blood is, and they show you what they swabbed here. There's pheno test done, pH plus, I guess that's pheno test,
Yeah, that's
whatever that is.
positive blood was detected.
Yeah, so they're pretty accurate on this knife, and it's interesting that it's never really mentioned. I don't know if my fan club has ever mentioned it, but it's never mentioned in any of these things where they try to prove whatever happened. It's never mentioned because it's a clear sign of a struggle. But this knife was close to David's left leg. This was next to the couch. There was a mixture of 2 or more people on it, as there should be. David, Kamel, and Rania cannot be excluded as possible contributors. But again, we get the 99.9998% of the general population that can be. So they have 4 labels. They have item 8-1, which is blood swab inside of the hole of the blade. Item 8-2, which is a swab of blood found on the folding side of the blade. Blood is not present on the handle of the knife, which I think is kind of odd. Like, that's where I would expect it to be, on the handle, right?
Right.
Anyways, that's item 8-3, and then item 8-4 is a hair sample found in the handle. So obviously we know how much hair we're looking at there. It doesn't mean that somebody tried to scalp somebody or tried to use this on somebody's hair, because there's hair everywhere in this. There's hair found on that hair next to that unspent round, and if you look at the photos, it almost looks like there's hair on top of the unspent round, and the unspent round looks like it's been compressed to the living room floor. But those are the weird things that stand out to me about item 8. Is just, this seems like a clear sign of a struggle. If there was any sign of a struggle, this would be item 8, of where they found blood and where they didn't.
And I would like to add too about the blood, the DNA results, is that they have, yes, they say it does not, or David, Kamel, and Rania, they can't be excluded, but no one is positively included as being contributors.
Right.
So that I found a little odd as well.
So how did they do that and say that they still give us that 99.999%?
Again, you're looking at those percentages, and it's talking about the general population was not in this crime scene.
Right.
Now, I just
like to make fun of that. I like to troll on that, because I always think, well, I thought I was part of the 90. I thought I was a part of the 99% here and a part of the general population.
Well, you are. You are part of the general population.
Actually, yeah.
You weren't at the crime scene, Vern.
That's true. That's true.
Greg did it. It's official. Greg did
They're
it.
geniuses. Yeah, they figured it out.
The real killer. It's Greg.
But they never asked for my DNA. I'll give them my DNA if they want.
Yeah, he came out of his crypt just for that one.
I came out of
his
my
mother's
mom's basement just to give
just to do that and then profit off
just to
it,
do
making
a
your
DNA
millions.
test.
And making your millions
Go
on
back.
this.
Right, sitting on my stack of millions from my book, Profit.
In your mom's basement.
In my mom's basement.
I do have a theory about the knife, though.
Oh, I thought you had a theory about my mom's basement. But okay, all right, let's talk about the knife.
Oh no, that's for our group.
Okay.
The one that we're creating about
The yellow cup.
Greg's theory on dust factor fiction.
Just wow.
The dust man.
Stay
There was
tuned.
no dust.
We have videos coming up on that.
Oh.
Dust is moving around too. Yellow dust.
The yellow cup is actually part of this.
Oh man.
But they go into the kitchen because there's passive blood in the kitchen, and it's clearly passive blood. It's not something that came from flying over the island,
right,
or anything. And if you look at the blood spatter that's on the wooden floor around the just around, it's like they've walked around with like blood dripping off of the knife, even.
Well, it looks too like a cast-off pattern from the knife.
Yeah. Because you see these little drips, and it's off of something thin, and it's passive. So it's like they were holding the knife down. It's dripping blood, and it's just doing little drips. And then I don't know what happened, but they go into the kitchen and they decide, okay, well, we're going to either wipe it off or wash it off. And does it talk about, Catherine, do you remember in the BCA paperwork, the huge file, did they say that they couldn't tell if it had been washed or not?
Nothing was ever mentioned about it being washed, no. But that's just what makes sense to me because of where the blood was located on the blades and how they described the blood being on there. It just would only make sense.
They're essentially just like they try to clean the blade.
Yeah, or try to clean it. And then just took it and set it on the floor.
If you zoom in on that blood spatter, especially the area where is closer to Kamel, you can see like little V angles.
Yeah, that's the cast off. That's what I'm telling you about. That's cast off, and it's generally from something thin like a knife like that.
Yeah.
If you go to photo number 4827.
Okay, let's see. I'll go into that. Let's see, 4827.
But there is also passive blood in all of these things, so it's not just cast off. There is, you can tell by.
So kind of like, like how, like, I'm going to sound like a total weeb here for a second, but like, like how you see like in these samurai films and all this, where they like kind of cast their sword, just like they swing it real quick, just that way it just shoots blood off real quick, then they go to sheath it. Right? Is that what you're kind of talking about? I mean, that makes sense. I mean, the blood will come off that way, for sure.
And see, the other thing about that crime scene that doesn't make sense is that there's no blood on the ceiling.
Right.
And the only blood that you see on furniture is the recliner.
Right. And
but then
if David commits suicide, then yeah.
Yeah, and when you look at these wooden floors and you look at the walls, the angle that blood is coming at, and the fact that it's medium velocity, it not only looks like cast off, but it also looks like blows making contact.
Right.
But how did it not get on the ceiling? This is clearly not high velocity blood.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I will argue that till my dying day. And I want somebody to prove to me where that high velocity blood is.
Well, there's none.
Show me
if you compare that compare it to
Right.
to the other case that you have, the Pinnock case.
Hancock case, yeah.
Yeah, I need to do that, don't I?
It's Pinnock, by the way.
Are we sure?
Pinnock.
Yeah, it's Pinnock.
Okay, William, do you see right there?
Oh, okay. I'm really curious. I'm pretty sure, it's Hancock.
It's Pinnock.
Pinnock
Pinnock is not the name of it's a city or whatever, but.
Well, it's in Apple Valley, just right over this way.
Apple Valley has like a subsidy.
Oh, it is Pinnock. Oh man, I kept calling it Pencock. Oh man. Oh man, that's terrible. That is terrible. Well, good eye on that one. I really kept thinking of Hancock.
Because in that case, I don't think we see any blood on the ceiling either.
Mm-mm.
And they were found right next to the front door. But we should do another show on that one, because I think you did a great presentation, Sophia, and we need to do another one on that for new people who probably have no idea what
We
we're
could do it
talking
tomorrow.
about.
I'm game for tomorrow if you guys want to do that.
Okay, now
Okay, well, that's
do you see that? You see that V shape over to the right of the 13, and the little
Yeah.
tiny drops of blood?
Yep, this right here.
No, go up a little bit to your right, up and to your right,
Upright.
and then right. Wait, stop. Go down, right there, and now make that V.
Oh, okay, right here.
No.
no,
Here?
further
there.
down.
Hold on, right there, and it goes straight across.
It's like a UFO V, yeah,
And
right there.
then-
And
Yeah.
then,
Yes.
Yeah.
That pattern right there is a cast-off pattern, and
Yeah.
generally from something like a knife.
Right.
And so that's why. And then there, like Sophie was saying, there's some other dots in here that could be passive, or it could also be just smaller drops, depending on what had happened and how it lands. So it's probably a mixture of both. But that V pattern right there tells you that something thin was used, and it was swung while it had blood on it. And yet there's a knife at the scene, but they never look at the knife.
Yeah, and we know
Yeah,
it's
can we
know
zoom
it's-
out and maybe kind of compare where that 13 is to get a good idea?
That's the photo right there.
Well,
Let me see.
the
where's
one thing
the-
I just want to point out real
But I mean,
quick,
if-
just with this
yeah.
real quick, just because this is here, just so people understand this is metric. Okay, so this is smaller than an inch. This is not an inch right here. This is not 2 inches. No, this is 2 centimeters. If I'm not mistaken.
Centimeters.
Canadian,
So-
that's Canadian drama right there.
I use
Okay.
inches. Thank you very much. Damn metric system. But no, I mean it's.
They always want to use the metrics.
Yeah, no.
Anyways.
I like my
It's
No,
inches.
that is-
centimeters and millimeters.
Right.
So
So
this is what
just
they
to show
use
how
as
small it is.
inside the currency.
Yeah, and it would just help. I think that's an awesome thing right there. It's a major point. It would be good to kind of. I know we can't zoom out or anything like that, but to kind of let people know, hey, where this 13 is compared to where the living room, because that's on the hardwood floor, obviously.
Right.
If you go, there's maybe 4815, photo number 4815.
Oh, yeah, that's a better one. Yeah. If it'll load.
Oh yeah, that is a good one right there.
I just love how slow my computer's acting right now. It's just like, no, I need to be thinking about everything. No, you don't need to be
know.
contemplating your life here.
So it would kind of be where in that area right there.
Mhm.
It would be
It's
up.
an interesting
no,
area.
Would be up right and to the somewhere right around in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. And the knife would be kind of northwest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
towards
but-
the window.
And be going out this way.
Yeah, kind of going out that way. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Plus, you're seeing more of that hair you're talking about. Oh, and dog poop,
Can we
since we're just
talk
mentioning
about that
things.
hair real fast?
Sure.
I think the hair moves more than that yellow cup, but
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So, I do have graying hair. It's a big deal for me to color my hair, honestly. And I've been doing it a lot lately, and I know what hassle it is. But if I had pre-planned a murder-suicide, and I knew that there were going to be headshots involved, why on earth would I dye my hair
Makes no
and
sense.
put that work in there? Not only that, but Kamel was in her late
20s.
Late 20s. She should not have had that much gray hair that she was worried about how she was going to look at her own funeral.
Right.
Do you think she had gray hair?
Mm-mm.
No, I don't. But I did have gray hair, like strands of it,
Oh,
Um,
okay.
in my 20s.
Yeah,
So-
I've been graying since I was 15, so.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that's not even a joke.
I'm 42. I have literally like 5 or 6 gray hair.
Well, I'm jealous.
See,
You braggart.
Yeah. Oh,
No,
now we have another Greg's fan club now.
I'm just stating now.
Screw this
another
guy.
reason to hate
Greg
Fred.
actually has 10 gray hairs. He claims he has 4 or 5.
Yeah, I have a whole head, so there's that. Damn you.
But yeah,
Greg dyes his hair daily.
what is the purpose of her doing that if they're just planning to kill themselves?
Yeah.
I'll let everybody go
I-
first, as I've got something I can say about it. And I know you and me have talked definitely about this, and I did expose this on... Oh, I wasn't on a show, but I did show this to everybody over audio, and it was pretty great. You guys got any thoughts? I'll let you guys go first.
Wait, what are we looking at?
Oh, just about the grain, or the hair and all this. Thoughts on that whole...
I see Kripperick is saying that he has long, beautiful locks of hair, no gray. So,
Well, there was a wig that Rainey is wearing in one of the photos in the journal.
Right.
And it's very possible that the dog could have got a hold of that and was destroying it finally because he was sick of it. But
Probably.
and it probably smelled like them too. I mean, if they're putting it on their head.
Right.
But
that's a
I
lot
don't
of
know.
hair.
I mean,
It's a lot of
this
hair.
is just an estimate. Well, you have somebody's hair too that's thin. You have that. And then there's got to be something else.
Well, this is
something.
why. Yeah, I mean, this is why when we look at some of the photos in Eric Nelson's film, and maybe even in the journal, the last known photos of Kamel and how much hair she did have. Now, with her
Some of
hair.
her looks like to be extensions. What you see on the floor looks like extensions.
Oh, okay. See, okay, that's good to know.
Possibility.
Okay,
good to know.
so would you dye your hair if you had extensions?
I have no
would
idea.
you do that at home?
I mean, I'm still trying to wrap
Because-
my head around, people that dye their hair pink and purple and all this. I just find it bizarre.
Yeah, I
so
mean, she's just dyeing it black, right?
Yeah.
As far as we know. I mean, that's it. I mean, that may give us a good idea
I
of
don't
how
remember if it was
often
black
they
or-
take their garbage out
right.
too, right? If they're dyeing their hair, like how long was that hair dye in there? If you look at the garbage, if you go to the kitchen garbage,
Mm-hmm.
there's some interesting stuff there too that we could
Yeah.
talk about for sure. If we're moving on from that night.
Oh no! I got something out since everybody's covered
Okay.
something on this. I'm going to go and cover this. So, back on what Sophia was saying about if somebody was really planning on killing themselves and going through this pack theory or whatever these wrong theories are, that Eric Nelson, all these guys all put through the ringer on this and tried to say they're official, there's a real thing, they're lies. We know that in his film they had cut the audio several times. They were spouting some things in there that a little peculiar because, as I know, Sophia and I talked about this the night when it came down to the journal, even with David's dad. So we know they're cutting things, and we know they're splicing video and audio at certain points. But I was able to prove that a while ago about the going over the spectrometer when you're looking at the audio itself. You can see clear cuts where they actually were doing it. So that's all I did is I basically took. Let me see if I actually got it. I think I still do. Should still be in my Google Drive. Let me see. If not, I'll have to go and find it. But I did do a spectrometer of it to actually show this. Audio doesn't naturally do this because you have background noise. So I just basically took the audio from that video and I looked at it. And you can see a very, very clear cut. Let me see if it is here though. Whoops, wrong one. There's the folder. Should be in here. Please tell me I put it in here. Please tell me I put it in here. Maybe. That might be actually the clip. can't play that though. So let me go ahead and actually, it might be desktop. Let's see. Maybe it's on the desktop. So I know I have it. There it is. Bam. Let's have some fun with this one. There we go. This is from the dock. What I've got on the screen right here is from the dock. I tested this, me and my wife. This is us. This is background noise. You can see the background noise right here. We have things in the background. Me speaking with a fan on. You can see this right here. You can see what this looks like. But then you see these very clear cuts.
That's very obvious.
Yeah,
Wow.
These are cuts right there. This is they're speaking and all this, and this is all background noise. But you're seeing these cuts here. That's not normal. And we know what was in the background was actually the fan and all this. So you got this fan on in the background, and then all of a sudden you get these random cuts. That doesn't happen. They
edited it so it would sound like what they wanted it to say.
Right. They were aiming, and this is also goes back in the whole thing with alums. Why aren't they in the movie? Goes back with that whole stuff like that.
They have a fan on in October,
Well, I mean, who knows? There's lots of.
Or was that from?
I mean,
from the August clip.
It was one where she was talking about being or not the rapture, but it was the voice.
Yeah, I wonder which, because there was an August one, or there was a. I mean,
which I think
the
that was
August one
August.
makes more sense.
I think that was the
Okay.
August one
Yeah,
because
the
there was a
August.
voice she had heard,
I was gonna
and
say,
she was
'cause it's
talking
not
about the height. So when looking at the spectrometer here, you can see very clearly this is going to pick up all your background noises and things like this. You can see through both of these, they're consistent. There's no cuts. Then you look over here, and there's a cut here, cut here, cut here, cut here. So the only reason you would do this is
And
if
the
you're
background noise is different.
right. So that's the problem we also got right there. And so you're seeing here's her speech.
I don't have any issue with the cuts.
Well, that's
this
the
is
thing.
a movie. This is a. I mean, they're
But
they're
they're
not
trying
going
to
to show the whole thing.
right. Well, but that's the thing is if they're what they're doing here is what they snipped out is we don't get the whole thing.
They
so
did
therefore,
that with me too. They did
Right.
that with everybody in the movie.
Right. So we don't know what they cut out. It could have been very well just like her explaining it and it making
I see.
sense. See what I'm saying?
Right.
So this could have been something that was just like it changed everything because this is cut out. But
I see what you're saying. So they may have just taken the parts just to make her sound crazy, where she may
Bingo.
have actually been kind of rationalizing the other side, like, okay, yeah, maybe
Well,
this.
Well, think about is I think you might have wrote about it about why the alums weren't in the movie, right? I believe it was you who wrote about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they weren't in it because of the movie itself made Kamel out to be crazy.
They wanted to make her part of a pack ferry. The movie was supposed to be a pack ferry.
Right, and
That's
so
the real movie. That was their goal, was to
Right.
make it into a pack ferry.
and so they didn't want to be included in that because that's making Kamel out to be crazy because they're cutting things. So obviously they saw
that
something.
made her guilty. They were trying to
Right.
make her guilty as if she wanted to kill her child.
Right, which is
And-
not the case.
Yeah, and what I'm seeing here, what would be interesting is you're looking at the background noises and how they don't match up, and that because it looks like they cut and paste and they put things in to make it flow the way,
Right.
so it would say what they wanted it to say. So I'm curious what it would sound like if you matched the cut pieces with the same backgrounds together, and then what would that say? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What would
that's-
you get if you put that? Because this looks just cut and pasted.
That's
Okay,
exactly
I took a
what it was.
section from here, and then I'll take a section from the back, and I'll put it toward the front, and now we've made this really nice little piece, and she now sounds crazy.
Yeah, and I haven't even gone through the video footage to actually see if the words actually match up, like they synchronize perfectly. I haven't even gone through that. This is just the audio alone. Now, if we were to go through and we see that, okay, it does match, then we have to look at the video footage itself where they cut, because was she in the same position and was she not really moving a whole lot? But we know she was a little animated. She moved. I can't show the clip, obviously, but after a show, we can definitely go and take a look if you guys want. But that's the big thing here is we'd have to be able to match that up. Is if they don't match up perfectly and it's just the audio that was clipped, but they kept it the same length as the footage, then they have to make it match with the lips and all this kind of stuff. And even with a good deep fake, good luck on that. Because deep fakes, you can even break those down. You get into the pixels and all sorts of things like this, and you can break those things down real easy. So
Yeah, I don't think they faked
No, they didn't.
video footage or anything. I mean, the real one the only one where she sounds panicked is the one where they don't show her. They don't show David. It just pans up. That one to me is the strangest, weirdest.
And I can definitely do that. I can
I've
definitely
seen.
pull that, and we can always.
But they're also saying after that, like people are acting like it's not like they go crazy from this point. Something happened there. I believe in the paranormal side. I think something happened there, and I don't believe that they were scared of it. I think she was kind of rationalizing it and just kind of dealing with it. And maybe it was the way that she's acting shows me that she's like finally dealing with the fact that there's something weird happening here. And maybe she had that momentary breakdown or something. I don't know, but there's nothing after that. She still works after that, right? She's still doing family stuff after that. Nobody notices anything crazy after that. But they use these things, and that whole film is there's so much stuff that is out of context, out of sequence. It's not like they're trying to create a timeline, because they don't create a timeline. If they would have done that, the film people would have been like, well, I mean, people who are making the movie like, well, there's nothing here. It was almost like they had to sexify this whole film in order to really get it made.
Absolutely.
Because Eric Nelson, I think Eric Nelson looked at the final draft and said, there's nothing here.
Well, me personally, I mean, because you have a Freemason, Herner Herzog, whatever his name is, that Freemason. Because
is
you got
he Freemason?
He is legitimately a Freemason.
Oh my goodness! Wow,
yeah, because you got that fooling on this, and of course, they're going to go and push specific certain agenda with gun control. Just saying, they like to push these things because they don't want the people having things. Of course, they're going to be pushing crap. So they need this to go and push, and we see there's all sorts of things going on. This incident was used just to push a specific political agenda. That's all this was. So that's why I don't like A Gray State, because it's so easy to show that David wasn't crazy. And even if there was something paranormal, you even listen to what, what's her face? Sidra had said, and I believe that was in your book as well, where basically David was in there like with sage or something like this, or he was praying at one point, she talked about that. So you got some paranormal event that she's witnessing David handling. I mean, there's something there just with that alone. It's like, okay, well, maybe if there was something paranormal, then David clearly was handling this.
Well, and it's an assumed. Yeah. People are going and saying, paranormal. What if it was just somebody who decided to plant some speakers around, and were messing with her head? Throwing out, some stuff and then talking to her like they're talking as a spirit. You know what I'm saying? It's easy to do that too.
The thing, I mean, here's the interesting thing to mention about Sidra, the thing that happened with Sidra, but that is the most paranormal aspect I've heard of this whole case, which I wish that was in the film. I think that would have changed a lot of things. That happened in 2011.
Right.
So if that's accurate, if that really happened, I mean, it just shows how far back the paranormal stuff has gone. That's before David made his 2012 trailer.
But again, does anybody other than Sidra say that, and how do we know it's the truth?
That's true.
100%. We can only go by what I can only document what she has said on it. That's it.
Well, we can't prove it happened prior to that. We can't prove that actually happened. It's just what it's on her word. Which, I mean, that's fine.
The whole thing is that if it was cut out from Eric Nelson's film, right, that gives it, to me, that it's a more credible source there. It's like, I think, many people think it's just not really relevant to this case. This happened in 2011.
Right.
And this is not a paranormal case where something paranormal happened that caused David to kill his family.
Oh, let's see. So when did David meet Danny August Mason? I don't remember the exact date.
It would have been around that. It would have been around 2010, 2011, sometime around film school.
Yeah,
so it would have been right around that time.
Yeah, so Kung Fu Boy could have been up to no good already. Oh, sorry, I meant Jeet Kune Do. He's the master of that.
Yeah, that's
And the end of Ghosts and all sorts of
I
other
would just, I would think that as a filmmaker, if you can't back anything up and you just have someone's, oh, here's a story I'll tell you, and the other person is not alive to verify that, I mean, and you have nothing, how are you going to make that? And, it's just hearsay from somebody who doesn't even want to be part of your film. So why would you include that?
That makes sense.
Well, at that time, Sidra did want to be part of it, but we also don't know, like, if Eric Nelson would have even included that in there. Based on his final cut, I think he would have. I think he wanted to put that stuff in there because it would have made them all look crazy. It would have backed up the whole crazy theory.
So you said they met in 2010, right? And this event took place in 2010?
2011.
2011 is when that took place. Well, David began writing the Gray State between April 21st and May 1st, 2010. So if he's already started writing it, and we know how paranormal the very first film was, or the very first script was, I mean, we could be going along with this. I mean, the thing is like, end of the day, I mean, there's this the concept of, like, I mean, this is where we get into, like, demonology and all this kind of stuff. And it's, I mean, I'm not denying the paranormal as a possibility, because I do believe to a certain extent about it. But I mean, I will go along with what Catherine is saying too. Somebody could have been screwing with them. I think that's more likely what would have been occurring. But I'm not going to exclude the paranormal, because when you get into the demonology and all this, well, what invites demons in? Fear. Well, I mean, some of this stuff, you'd think David might be afraid of some of it. I mean, he was a soldier, so he might have been confident enough and, like, in what he could do. So he maybe just like, whatever, something like this happens, I'll kick its ass, kind of thing. But at the same time, like, Kamel, she knows what he's writing about. I mean, even when I spoke to my wife about certain things about, New World Order and some of these things that you can see, that cult type of stuff, that freaked her out. And I know it freaks people out when they first hear about it, and they're like, wait, what? I mean, all I got to say is go down the adrenochrome path. Yeah, that rabbit hole. You go down that and you start seeing some crap. It's like, oh,
Yeah, I mean, it did. I think it was really Eric Nelson's film that really kind of made me think more about what Sidra had told me first. That it just almost seemed like there. And if you look at Kamel's video where she's talking about this voice, she doesn't sound scared to me. She sounds almost intrigued by it, like, hey, there was something here. It's almost like if you see a UFO. That was kind of the same feeling that I got from it. Like, wow, there's something weird out there. What the heck is going on? But she didn't seem scared by it. She's kind of smiling and just kind of like laughing about it, like she wasn't really taking it seriously. So I don't know. Maybe there were a lot more of that, and that's what I wanted to see in that journal. That's what I was looking for. From that stuff.
More of the paranormal type of stuff. I mean, you're seeing a lot more of this. They were just dealing with it.
We saw a couple orbs. They flew by us. All right, whatever.
Yeah. But that is definitely an interesting angle for sure. So, all right. So, anything else? Anybody got anything else on that, or are we ready to move on?
What else do we have here?
We've still got Suicide Note we can talk about. We got Allahu Akbar. We got the Open the Rise. We've got Mold Growth, how that can be kind of set potentially. I mean, especially you got some people that are watching CSI or something like this, freezing bodies, doing all sorts of this kind of stuff. You can go down that rabbit hole, why the mold is there. And then maybe is that meant to throw us off? Is Kamel the first to die, really? And then David and Kamel were killed, maybe Kamel was frozen, and then David and Rania were killed, and then their bodies sit up, and then here goes Kamel. I mean, there's all sorts of different things you could do with the mold growth one, too, especially when it comes to freezing bodies, if that's a possibility. But, I mean, the easy ones we can always go after just the notes. That's always a fun one to explain. So yeah, let's do
Yeah.
that. Let's go off to the suicide note. We were already talking about that earlier, so might as well keep going with that. So I know. What's really interesting is Sophia noted this when we were actually speaking earlier about the mythos and the myth, and the one that was on the computer that was typed up was titled Myth, and it said what was the exact phrase? It was something like I'm sorry and I'll love you, or I love you all, or something like this. So they may remember it like to a T, because I certainly don't remember it off the top of my head. Somebody asleep?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking and I had myself muted.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, I could have sworn I was hearing somebody like talk, and I was like, what the hell?
No, it said, I've loved you all with all my heart.
See, that's interesting too, especially as it's titled Myth. Anybody got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's open. That doesn't make sense. Like, why is it just there? Like, I don't know. It's kind of weird that it's almost in the screensaver mode, right? So it's black when the police walk in, but it's flipped open. So as soon as they touch it, as soon as they swab it, it's going to show them. Or there's no lock on it,
right?
Basically, so anybody could have just opened that thing up and.
Well, yeah, because you read his scripts and then you read that little blurb on that screen. It's not the same cadence. It's not the same speech pattern and writing. As so, why it just doesn't make sense. That's where my brain goes. This doesn't sound like David.
It's I think that was actually written on December 19th too. It's that was written way before any of the stuff happened. So what document? That's in one of those
black lights.
One of those electronic forensic documents, and it clearly, and that may be in the 317 page one, but it clearly shows that this was created on December 19th. It may have been edited or something, may have been looked at later, but so it almost seems like, okay, well, that is not even relevant then. It's not even relevant to this, because he could have written that many days before the bodies were found, at least a month or so.
Right.
I wish I had that in front of me, but that was one of the things. Once we got these new documents about the whole black lighting and all that stuff, that was one of the things that I found very curious. Is that, wow? So they talk about the whole myth doc and when that was started. It wasn't started after these deaths. This was clearly started before these deaths. So this is not a suicide note. This is not a note of any relevance to this. But it is another thing that is staged, that is open when the police show up. I mean, to me, that's another thing that is clearly evidence of a staged crime scene.
Right.
And after we got those documents, that pretty much shows the proof of it.
100%. Yeah, my take on that really is just that it was like we were saying earlier, what it really came down to is the fact that we know David was writing other scripts. We know from his journal entries he was in the process of this. I find it weird that it was just kind of on like a essentially Mac's, or Apple's just little notepad, if you will. But
yeah, it's like, why would he open Notepad instead of his writing software?
Right, and my thoughts on this is just it was literally just being used exactly what it's supposed to be used for. Just like a notepad, just kind of jotting some ideas down. So he probably had some ideas down on it. I think that was probably deleted. So, and I think that's where we can kind of just we can get into the whole laptop and the buttons that were pressed and all this. But yeah, it's really interesting, because why would he write something like that? As you brought up a very good point, it's not the same cadence. So, All right, Sophie, you got anything?
It was.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
You got anything, Sophia, on this one? Or?
Yeah, I don't know where she went, but you guys, yeah, it's getting late. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning here, so I think I'm going to drop off.
Okay.
But thanks for letting me join.
Oh,
And thanks
absolutely.
for letting me yell at you, Greg.
That's always fun.
And
I love
just for the audience, and everything.
I think it's hot. I think it's very hot.
Greg's fans. But yeah, no. So where can people find your content, Catherine?
I just have a YouTube channel. If you see, just look me up. If you just look up Catherine Michelle with one L on YouTube and just put my name with David Crowley, and you'll see my face pop up, and there I am.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you for joining in tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks, you guys, and don't stay on too late. Poor Sophia, it's like going on 2 o'clock for her. So
Yeah.
Wow.
we'll see you guys. We'll catch you guys next time.
I'll catch you later.
And bye.
Bye. Well, there's more too that's going on too with this, because you've got the suicide note, but then you've also got this weird thing. Why would he put it on?
There's no suicide note. There's no
Well, exactly.
Yeah, there's
You got
no
this-
suicide note.
You got this alleged suicide note sitting there. And that's a
No,
notepad.
who can say it's a suicide note? So
Well, exactly.
here's what I'm trying to find. Okay, so it looks like that 370 pager. If you look at page 45, maybe that's where it is. There was somewhere on here you can see. Yeah, so it's created 12/15/2014. Here's the weird thing about that. It's modified 123. So that could be when they accessed it, so that triggered it to modify it.
Yeah, like an auto
That could be the police, the police accessing it, because they were trying to do things to make it very clear that, hey, we want to make sure we don't modify it. So the 123 makes sense, because obviously that's after they've found the bodies and everything.
Right.
But the fact that this was created on 12/15/2014 pretty much makes the I have loved you all with all of my heart. It's not even relevant.
Right.
The real thing is, why was this staged? So that when the police opened it up, when the police looked at this at the MacBook, which most computers, by the way, you have to sign in. Maybe in 2015, maybe that wasn't a big thing. 2014. Let's talk about 2014, because really, let's talk about that. But still,
Right.
It's like. And this happens in David's office. This happens with the computer in David's office too. That one, like the police do not have to sign in or log in or anything. It's all laid out for them.
Right.
Just like the gun safe, just like everything else, everything is laid out. All they have to do is touch the keyboard, and they see what whoever did this wants them to see.
Right.
This is a staged crime scene here.
Right.
But the fact that that's what tripped me out, was that this was created on 12/15.
Damn.
How does this have any relevance to any of this, right? If this
Right.
myth doc. It's interesting to me.
It is very interesting. And you said what page was this on?
Yeah, go to page 45.
45. Why is this? Okay, that's not
Oh
the right
no,
one.
yeah, that's on the wrong. Yeah, it's like
here.
317 pages.
It should be this one here, the item number 5, right? Yeah. You said 45?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, a second. Let me just zoom down to it very well. There we go. Oh, there it goes. So we got right here.
Go right up a little bit.
And look
higher,
right here.
a
This
little-
is the part I wanted to go and make very clear. Look right there. New projects, Hera, myth. He was writing about his new project. Where do we see Hera? That's where we got to go into the office. I'll go and do it. I'll do it. Just to prove my point. But I mean, that's the thing. Is like I don't think the police even pieced that together all the way either. Let's see, was it right here? Oh, I think it is. Yep, Hera, right here. And you can go and open this, and then we can take a look right here. Hera.
Yeah, look at that link. Look at the source file too. This is from his Dropbox.
Right. So they went in the Dropbox for it to go and get into his new projects folder. So what do we got here? Well, we've got this document that was open right there. I think this is also partially an undoing, because why would David this is created here, but it's 12/15/2014 it was created. Okay, so that's created before. He's creating it for his new project, Hera, which we know from his journal entries he's trying to move on to a different project.
But that's weird that it's not modified until after his death. So it's like what we see there.
Which this has to
be it, right?
Right. So which means he had this up, and maybe he didn't turn his laptop off very often. We'd have to go and actually double check.
This popped up. This was a pop-up screen.
Mm-hmm.
The only image that we have from the crime scene photos, it's very blurry. So you can kind of make it out of what it is, but you can clearly see this is all that is there. It's just the one line.
Right. But then we have to get back into the keyboard, and the reason why we have to is because we don't see David's DNA anywhere on there, but we know this is his project. Yeah. See, so if we're only seeing Kamel's DNA on there, that's all we're getting, right? Then did Kamel write this? Was she the one behind Hera? Oh no. We got some conspiring going on. But
well, I mean, it's just an access, so I mean, this could have been, I don't know, if it depends on how their computers are synced. If he has the computer in the office synced, I don't know. I really don't know. We'd have to look at what was his DNA on the office computer.
They didn't test it.
They didn't test it.
Exactly. But it's a little curious, because then we've got this all set up, just like you were saying. It's like they tap this, just trying to go get the evidence. What do they get? Now they get this thing popping up, and now it's okay. This sounds like a suicide note. This was supposed to sound like, right? So they're trying to go make this out to be. More often than not, from what I've checked statistically, you're not going to generally find a suicide note. It's generally they just kind of just do it,
But for suicide notes that you do find, do you find that they're actually signed, or they actually have some type of indication that's from them?
Right. But there's no indication. And even then, if you're going to use, the blood is the indication, the DNA you find in the computer is indication. Well, they only found Kamel's, therefore, did Kamel write this? And they we talk about the blood. We never got into the latent print, because they did find, and you can see in the photos, there are prints there, but they were not able to match those to David. Right.
So if they're not able to match those prints, which look like pretty good prints there,
right.
If they can't match them to David, that's another problem.
Right. Right. And the other interesting thing with that, just kind of moving along with that too, though, just with the whole this alleged suicide note there, is we can still see, like you were saying earlier, they've got this evidence there at that one. They don't touch a whole lot of them. They just kind of take the what they get from that initial pull. They end up getting it's Kamel, right? That's all we've got is it's Kamel. And then they end up going to the other office, and what do they get there? They got another note there too. Open the rise with Kamel's blood on it. So they're already like, oh, okay, well, this is clearly David. It's Kamel's blood. Why would Kamel couldn't have done this? Well, I mean, technically speaking, they didn't do it at all. But okay, but you got all these things that are just pointing at. David's leaving a suicide note, this alleged suicide note, and he's saying, open the rise. Funny about that, because then you got the Jason Allen email, open the rise, or he's basically talking about this the rise, and about how there's gonna be a trailer dropping, and he's really excited sounding. So this makes this a little more peculiar here, even more so. And then you've also got the Allahu Akbar on the wall, and for me, all three of those kind of sync up in this way, because now you've got this is like, this is what proves David did this. And you see a lot of people, they use this. Like, well, he clearly left a suicide note, and he had, this open the rise, which, nobody can ever give a good explanation. Why would he leave this? Why would he tell somebody, open the rise? That makes zero sense. He left a note for himself if he did it. you know. But even then, we know that we get in the Jason Allen email, he was already planning on that. He's going to get that going. We know that Danny August Mason is fighting him for it. And we get Robert Hoyt, then we've got the whole Freemason connection with these guys. You know, then you've got, who's the other one? Sean Wright was concerned with David releasing the rise because he was concerned it was his tax information and all this kind of stuff in there. It wasn't, and David even assured him on Facebook. So now we've got two people right here we can kind of tie that they would definitely have some clear motive of why they don't want the rise out there, even though David was 100% on saying there was no tax information even released about little Sean. So it's bizarre, but you were seeing potential motives popping up here. And then you've got the Allahu Akbar, which even then, the really funny thing about that is you've got capitalized, you know, A in Allahu, two lowercase L's, and then you've got uppercase A-H, I believe the U might have been under or lowercase, and then you got Akbar, which is all spelled in uppercase as well. Little peculiar, in my opinion. Why would the two L's be lowercase, for one? Even if you were to say space, I mean, well, yeah, I'm just saying. It's a little peculiar still. You know, there's all sorts of things with it, but it's all meant to make it look like, oh, David did this. Clearly, it's not Kamel. It's her blood up there. But we're seeing only her blood on the keyboard, which doesn't make any sense. That's why I brought up the whole... what happens if the hands were just removed? All these things were removed prior to this, because then it makes sense how these things are getting brought around the way they're being brought around. Kamel's prints, and you've got the blood, and all this. You've got all the damage already done, and now they're just using this to kind of say David did this, and you know that's the thing. All they had to do was just basically take David's hand and get a little bit of blood on it, and bam, now they can already just make him do it, essentially. So,
yeah, no, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Well,
so you got anything else on that?
Nope, nothing else on that one.
Perfect.
I think that was the only thing that kind of stood out to me. So.
Yeah, fair enough. You got anything else you want to, like, any other rabbit holes or anything?
I think we covered a lot of rabbit holes.
Yeah, I'm still looking for some, because that kitchen chair and the dust, honestly, the dust is it's actually really fascinating. And now I'm going to be having to look that. But that kitchen chair, I don't think it's anywhere in the house. I really don't. I think the only place it would possibly be would be the basement, but... Well, maybe the office. I suppose that's also a possibility, maybe. But even then, I believe he's got one of those, like, chairs with wheels on it and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything in the garage that, any rabbit holes there.
Yeah, the playlist is another fun one, because that's also, like, if you listen to it and you read everything, you know, like the lyrics and everything, it's not really suicidal. There's a lot of love songs in there. There's some you might be able to potentially say, oh, suicidal or confrontational, but is it really, though?
Well, there was something about a song called Fall in Line, and I guess that is supposed to be about committing suicide.
Yeah, but the thing is, it wouldn't make sense for him to just, you know, was that like his cue to, that's when he's going to commit suicide? He's just going to do all these things, and all of a sudden this song pops on, and it's time to go.
Well, that's the other weird thing, is that they act like he had that song on the loop or something. It's like this was a playlist,
right?
So it's still playing as the police are going through that house and everything. It's still playing. It's not like the song is stopped or anything. So I don't know. That's right. I never really understood any of that.
I think that's one of those. I think it's part of the staging, though.
Yeah. Well, it's like they just happened to take a photo at that time there. I mean, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of other songs
right
on there.
Yeah,
so,
he's got the Spider-Man soundtrack on there. He's got I mean, I've actually got it on my YouTube channel. Well, I mean, for personal use, of course, I believe. But I've got his whole playlist put together.
Now, the Spider-Man song, there's another little rabbit hole there, I guess, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
There was one of the friends in the 94-page police reports where she says that Kamel told her that David was going to be working on the Spider-Man movie. So we try to go back and find the dates of, okay, what date could that possibly have been? What Spider-Man movie was out? You know, when was the last Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie? No, that would have been...
No, I guess that would well, we'll see. That was 2007, and that's what these songs are from. Spider-Man 3.
Okay, but this would have been like in 2013 or 2014. So what movie could they have been talking about?
Let's see.
The
it would have had to been the first Amazing Spider-Man.
Which came out when?
2012, or it would have had to been the second one.
Or maybe the third one that never got made.
Amazing Spider-Man 2, or was December 2014. Or it could have been the third one. That's true. That they talked about.
Never got done. Yeah. Because the second one bombed.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly didn't mind the second one so bad, but...
No, I think you're right. Yeah, the second one would have made sense, actually. That would have made a lot of sense. Well, if it came out in 2014, it's probably done in 2013, maybe late 2012. So
yeah, the second one was 2014.
Yeah, well, that's interesting.
And so
could have been that. Now they were working on the spinoff. I can't remember the name of the bad guy group or whatever it is. They were going to work on that, and that didn't work out. So I don't know. I think I'm the only one who liked those movies.
I liked him. I really thought he was a good Spider-Man. I didn't like his hipster version of Peter, but I mean, Tom Holland is still my favorite. I think by far. Because you definitely get that.
Yeah, he's mine too.
Yeah, he's really good. But like, I mean, I'm not a fan of Tobey's. Tobey's was good, but he was a Peter Parker.
I like the Tobey. I like Tobey.
I mean, that's the thing. It's kind of like, a lot of people, like, when they talk about, like, the Batman films, it's the same kind of thing. I know we're getting way off topic here. Murder of the Gray State After Hours. But no, it's like when you look at, like, the Batman films, like, me personally, I am fully on board with Robert Pattinson now. I'm like, oh, man, this is Batman from the comics. This is like a year. This is like a year. This is a year 2 Batman. I mean, this is fantastic. But I mean, like the combat he does in this, the detective work. I mean, it's legit. You look at Christian Bale. Don't get me wrong. I loved Christian Bale's Batman, and I still say he's one of the at least top 2. But Christian Bale's Batman was very much just like, he was very, very reliant on the tech. He was, he was more. It was the movies were more about Bruce Wayne than they were about Batman. And
it's all Michael. I think Michael Keaton for me. It just doesn't get better.
Michael Keaton. He was a good one. I mean, we got to go and backtrack on that because Adam West. That's all I'm saying.
That's true.
The anti-shark bat repellent. Let's do that. Mm-hmm. I need some of that.
Guys, it's 2:00 here, and we've been going for 3 hours.
Oh, no worries.
All right, we can tap out here.
Yeah, but yeah, no, definitely. There's some stuff we're gonna have to go and cover soon. So, is anybody open for tomorrow night having a discussion about what were we were talking about doing something? It was another. Oh yeah, the Pennock case. Does anybody want to look at that tomorrow?
I don't know if I'll be available tomorrow night.
I would need a little bit more time.
Okay.
So that I
would
could
definitely be interested in doing that.
Okay. Yeah, we can maybe plan for next weekend or something like this.
Okay.
Okay. Well, all right then. Well, where can the audience find your guys' content so we can get this out to the audience so people can go check your stuff out?
I don't have any content. I've never made content ever.
Yeah.
So
Greg just
I don't
lives in
know.
his mom's basement. You know, he looks like Nosferatu.
I don't know what content is.
He barely made it on, so you know.
Exactly.
The internet is beyond.
I'm actually on a payphone right now. So for
with
3
the
hours.
Polybius
Salad
arcade
ready.
right in front of you.
No, just look up David Crowley. Look up the Gray Stage, Greg Fernandez Jr. You'll probably find anything. If you're ever looking for any documents, anything that you want to, any documents, any photos, any videos that we have, you can go to thegraystage.wordpress.com. If you're on Facebook, go to Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook group, and you'll find us there.
All right. And what about you, Sophia? Where can people find your content?
Usually on Catherine's channel, which is Catherine Michelle, on YouTube, or on Greg's channel.
And we are also building a new YouTube channel to discredit the yellow cup theory. So check out that.
And Facebook
okay.
group.
I
Yeah,
see
and the
how it
dust
is.
theory. The yellow dust theory.
Yellow dust theory. Yes. Fact or fiction, yellow dust theory.
With Greg's face is Nosferatu. And
Hot
the owl.
Greg fan club. Yes, yellow dust.
Oh, man.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. I really
Of course.
appreciate it.
And thank you guys
Always
for
fun.
joining me.
You got it.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I hope everyone
Thank
has a
you.
wonderful night. Of course, of course. I hope everyone has a wonderful night, and we will see the rest of you guys tomorrow night. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your night.